Chapter 341. Tang Yun's grievance under Xiao Dan's tearful complaints, and Wei's indignant explanation. Tang Yun's family finally understood the whole story. It all started with the two's financial aid. Xiao Wei and Xiao Dan were both from a small county near Songzhan. They were neighbors since they were young, and could be considered childhood sweethearts. They liked each other as they grew up, and their parents had tacitly agreed to the fact that they would be together in the future. However, there was an unforeseen event. Both families were poor, and they were poor. They had to live frugally, let alone pay for school. When Wei and Dan were in elementary school, a few big bosses came to the village and offered financial aid to poor children. Everyone was overjoyed when they heard the news, and Wei and Dan successfully went through elementary school, middle school, and vocational school with the help of the same boss. They were about to graduate, and according to the agreement they made with the boss, they would work for free for a period of time after they turned 18 as repayment for their financial aid. Originally, this agreement was only a symbolic form. Many students in the village went to find their respective bosses for financial aid, and it was only for a period of time. It was considered as returning the favor. Little Wei and Little Dan thought that they would be the same, but they didn't expect that after they went to the big boss's company, the big boss took a look at Little Dan and made her a secretary, while Little Wei was assigned to be a security guard. Both of them were paid according to normal employee treatment. It was not easy to find a job these days. Little Wei and Little Dan found a formal job before they graduated, so they were naturally quite happy. While they were grateful to their boss, they also decided to work hard to repay their boss's kindness. But who would have thought that the nightmare would begin? The boss didn't have any good intentions in making Dan his secretary. He started drooling over her beauty and body the moment he laid eyes on her. Dan wasn't very pretty, but she was young, fresh, had good skin, and a good figure. The boss was tempted and prepared to take her for himself. In the beginning, the big boss only expressed his intentions very subtly. After being flatly rejected by Xiao Dan, he began to show his ferocious face and began to touch Xiao Dan more and more unscrupulously. Dan naturally told her boyfriend Wei after being wronged, and in a fit of rage, Wei brought Dan to the boss and told him that they wanted to resign. They couldn't afford to offend him, but they could at least hide from him. They could quit, right? Wei wasn't stupid. He knew that they couldn't afford to piss off the boss. He heard that the boss had connections in both the underworld and the underworld, so he could only tactfully express his dissatisfaction and request to resign. As a result, the big boss turned hostile on the spot and said, "Resign? Impossible." According to the original contract, Lil Wei and Lil Dan had to work for the company for 3 years after they turned 18 before they could leave. Otherwise, it would be a breach of contract and they would have to pay for all the scholarships and interest. Of course, this contract was only symbolic at the beginning. Many students sponsored by other bosses did not go to work. They just regarded it as a kind of charity. But when it came to Dan and Wei, there was nothing they could do if the boss wanted to take it seriously. They were dumbfounded when they saw the contract, not knowing what to do. The boss had already torn off all pretenses, so he didn't hold back at all. He told Dan that if she became his mistress, she wouldn't have to pay back the money and would get a raise in the future. Wei, on the other hand, would continue working as a security guard and wouldn't have to resign. If she didn't agree, then he would return all the financial aid within 3 days. Wei and Dan were dumbfounded. Where were they going to get that much money in 3 days? The financial aid the boss had given them was at least 150,000. How were they going to pay it back? Wei had no choice but to contact a company that sold his kidneys to pay back the debt. He didn't want Dan to be wrong. He couldn't accept his girlfriend becoming someone else's mistress. Tang Yin's family knew about the financial aid, and they thought that Wei and the others were lucky to be helped by a rich boss. But now it seemed like it was a misfortune. "Auntie, please think of something. Wei can't sell his kidney. I heard that his body would be in terrible shape if he sold his kidney, and he wouldn't be able to do anything in the future." Dan was on the verge of tears as she looked at Mrs. Tang pitifully. She tried to persuade him, but Wei didn't listen. "Wei, don't do anything stupid. How about this? I've saved 20,000 kwai over the years. Use it first, and I'll think of something else for you, Mrs. Tang said as she went to look for the bank book. Auntie, it's okay. 20,000 isn't enough to do anything. That's money for my uncle's surgery. I can't just use it. Wei quickly stopped her. Auntie, you know how close I am to Dan. I can't push her into the fire pit. However, what Xiao Wei said was the truth. He could not push Dan into the fire pit, and he needed 150,000 yuan. No one else could help him. If Mrs. Tang had 150,000 yuan, she would have done her husband's surgery a long time ago, instead of dragging it out until now. Ian, can you give Lindy a call? Borrow some money from him? Mrs. Tang hesitated as she looked at her daughter. Wei was the only son in her family, and they were counting on him to carry on the bloodline. Selling his kidney would be a problem for him to take care of himself in the future. Ah? Tang Yin paused, not expecting her mother to ask Lin Yi for a loan. It wasn't 3,000 or 5,000, it was 150,000. How was she supposed to ask for it? How was she supposed to pay it back even if she did? It was such a large sum, and she couldn't possibly pay it back. Auntie, who's Lin Yi? Dan hadn't heard of the name before. Who in the world could borrow 150,000 in one go? He's your Tang Yin sis boyfriend, he's pretty rich, Mrs. Tang explained. Mom! Lin Yi isn't my boyfriend, we're not related. Tang Yin blushed as she looked at her mother. How could she say something like that? He gave you a phone already, how is he not your boyfriend? Mrs. Tang was panicking as she looked at her daughter. Yin, you're not going to abandon your brother, are you? Are you going to watch him sell his kidney? Chapter 342. Being forced. He's your boyfriend. Borrowing money from him is a good way to test him and see if he's sincere towards you, Mrs. Tang said. Look at Wei, he's willing to sell his kidney for Dan. What's wrong with Lin Yi lending you some money? Tang Yin bit her lip and looked at her father, hoping that he'd say something for her. Jiqing, however, lowered his head, looking like a good old man who'd been bullied. Jiqing was blaming himself for his uselessness as well. If he were successful in his career, the family wouldn't be in such a difficult situation. Sis, is brother-in-law really that rich? Wei couldn't help but ask after hearing his aunt's words. Who would sell their kidney if there was any other hope? Little Wei was forced to sell his kidney because he had no other choice. However, if he could solve the problem by not selling it, he would not be so stupid as to sell his kidney. Wei, don't listen to my mom, he's not your brother-in-law, he's just a classmate. Tang Yin felt conflicted as she looked at Wei's hopeful eyes. She knew that if she were to borrow money from Lin Yi, then their relationship would become complicated. But if she didn't borrow money, Wei would have to sell his kidney. Sis, why don't you ask him? Little Wei was sure that the person his aunt was talking about was his sister's boyfriend. Even if he wasn't, it wasn't far from the truth. Wei, it's not that I don't want to help you, but how am I going to pay him back? Do we even have money to pay him back? Tang Yin sighed. Sis, he'll become my brother-in-law sooner or later. You're already his woman, he won't force you to pay him back, right? Wei looked at Tang Yin. Plus, Dan and I have hands and feet, we'll be able to pay him back one day. Yeah, Yin, your brother didn't ask you for anything, it's just a small matter. Why are you so stubborn? Mrs. Tang was getting angry. There was a way to solve the problem, so why did she have to force her brother to sell his kidney? If you don't make this call, I'll call him. You're forcing me. Tang Yun's eyes reddened as tears welled up in her eyes. You don't understand at all. You don't know what's going on. Tang Yin wanted to say that Lin Yi might not even be able to be with her in the future, but she didn't say it in the end. Yuner, how can this be called forcing you? Do you think I would harm you? Mrs. Tang was a little unhappy. She wasn't asking her to do anything bad, but she could borrow money from Lin Yi. What was going on? I'll make a call, okay? Tang Yin stood up and ran out of the house with her phone. She couldn't help but start sobbing when she reached the yard. His mother didn't understand, and his younger brother didn't understand either. They thought that they had some kind of reputation to be able to get Lin Yi to lend them 150,000 yuan. Did they even think about their own situation? Although it was true that Lin Yi liked her now, at the end of the day, her relationship with Lin Yi hadn't even been officially confirmed. Why would he lend her 150,000 yuan? It wasn't a small amount, and if she could borrow it, she would have borrowed it from her father a long time ago. Why would she wait until now? After crying, Tang Yin still dialed Lin Yi's number. No matter what, she couldn't let her brother sell his kidney, could she? Lin Yi replied to Tang Yin's message, but she didn't reply for a long time. He thought that she didn't see it, but he didn't expect her to call him. Hello? Tang Yin? Lin Yi was pleasantly surprised that Tang Yin called him. It was a good start. Why are you calling me? Do you miss me? Tang Yin didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Lin Yi's words. Her sad mood brightened up a lot. Who misses you? Stop being so smug. Huh? Lin Yi smiled. Why are you calling me so late at night? Lin Yi actually understood Tang Yin quite well. She was an introverted girl, strong but not good at expressing her feelings. If there was nothing, she wouldn't call him, at least not now. Lin Yi, I have something to ask of you. Tang Yin's heart sank as she thought about what she was going to say next. Something to ask of me? Lin Yi was startled. This wasn't like Tang Yin's personality. And can you lend me 150,000 yuan? Don't worry, I will definitely return it to you, I promise. Tang Yin hesitated and said her request. 150,000 yuan? Lin Yi was even more stunned. This was even more out of Tang Yin's character. He gave her a phone before, but she didn't want to accept it. Why would she suddenly want to borrow money from him? However, this indirectly meant that Tang Yin must have encountered some trouble that she couldn't resist. Otherwise, she would have to die to borrow money from him. Tang Yin wasn't a greedy girl. If she was, she would have been corrupted by society long ago. I really need this money. My brother is in some trouble. If I don't have this money, he will have to sell his kidney. Tang Yin thought that Lin Yi misunderstood her as a greedy girl and quickly explained. Sell his kidney? Lin Yi almost fainted. Tell him not to do anything stupid. Money isn't a problem. Give me your account number. I will ask someone to transfer it to you right now. If it was a few days ago, Lin Yi wouldn't have this much confidence. But now, Lin Yi had just extorted 100 million yuan from Lu Tianyi. Ah? This time, it was Tang Yin's turn to be stunned. She didn't think that Lin Yi would agree to transfer the money to her without asking about the specifics. Did he trust her that much? Wasn't he afraid that she would lie to him? Ah, what? It's only 150,000 yuan. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of Tang Yin lying to him because he knew Tang Yin's personality. Then, wait a minute. Tang Yin was very excited. Her face was red. She had mustered up her courage to ask Lin Yi for the money. She was afraid that Lin Yi would reject her, and that Lin Yi would find it difficult to borrow money from her. Although Lin Yi was a rich kid, not every rich kid could take out 150,000 yuan in one go. But Lin Yi seemed to have accepted it easily, without hesitation at all. This made Tang Yin sigh in relief. At the same time, she was very grateful to Lin Yi. Mom, Lin Yi said he wants a bank account number. Tang Yin couldn't help but smile when she said that. Chapter 343. Chapter 343. Worries of happiness. On one hand, she felt very happy and sweet. Fin's ex-boyfriend didn't even lend her 20,000 when her family asked for it, let alone 150,000. Although her words were sweet, in the end, Xiao Fin still ended up in such a state. Thinking back, other than being a little domineering, Lin Yi didn't seem to have said anything sweet to her at all. But in critical moments, when she needed help, when she was the most helpless, Lin Yi would always appear at the right time. On the other hand, Tang Yun felt that she owed Lin Yi a lot, to the point where she couldn't pay him back. Tang Yun didn't think that she would be able to pay Lin Yi back in a couple of years, nor did she think that Wei and the others would be able to pay her back. Was it really like what her brother said? She was his now, and didn't need to pay him back? It was easy to say, but difficult to do. You borrowed it already? Mrs. Tang thought that her daughter would have to pay a price to talk to Linny personally. Mrs. Tang wasn't an idiot. She had seen through the fickleness of the world, and while it was a bit like she was pushing her daughter into a pit of fire, it wasn't entirely the case. Linny was different from the Kang Ming she often knew. He wouldn't leave her after playing with her, would he? Besides, Xiao Wei was the only son in her family. As his aunt, if she didn't stop him from selling his kidney, her father wouldn't let her go. In her family in the countryside, the patriarchal concept was very strong. Mrs. Tang didn't think that her daughter would borrow the money with just a phone call. She was happy and surprised, but also regretful. I should have borrowed 50,000 more, and we could have done the surgery for your dad, Mom. Tang Yun frowned unhappily. Did she think that Linny was some kind of money tree, that he could borrow as much as he wanted? Girl, are you stupid? Can't you borrow more than once? Mrs. Tang was thinking that the money couldn't be borrowed for free, so she might as well borrow more. Mom, what are you talking about? Tang Yun panicked. If you keep this up, I won't borrow any more, not a single cent. All right, I won't say any more. Mrs. Tang looked at her daughter resentfully. She thought to herself, why can't my daughter see the light? Get more money when he likes you, and you'll have money even if he doesn't want you anymore. Mrs. Tang couldn't be blamed for having such snobbish thoughts. Anyone would have the same thoughts if they had to support a family like this on their own. Mrs. Tang was really scared of being poor. She didn't want to be poor anymore. Love was important, but without money, what was there left? If it weren't for the fact that she still loved old Tang, she would have divorced him a long time ago. But so what? Old Tang wasn't the only one injured in the factory. How many families had already divorced? That was why Mrs. Tang was encouraging Tang Yin to ask Linny for the money in her mind. Getting the money in her hands was the only thing that mattered. How could she not know what her mother was thinking? But Tang Yun couldn't understand her mother's thoughts. The hardships of life hadn't erased her self-reliance. But right now, Tang Yun still couldn't understand her mother's thoughts. The hardships of life hadn't erased Tang Yun's self-reliance. Tang Yun, what's wrong? 150,000 isn't enough? Linny heard Mrs. Tang's nagging and asked with a smile. No, don't listen to my mom. Tang Yun remembered that she was still holding the phone, and that Linny had heard her conversation with her mother. She was embarrassed and angry at her mother's greed for money. Mrs. Tang found a bank card. They only had 20,000 in savings, and this was the only card they had. She carefully hid it under the mattress. Ian, give me the phone, Mrs. Tang said as she tried to snatch the phone from Tang Yun. Tang Yun wouldn't give the phone to her mother. She didn't know what her mother would say if she gave it to her. Give it to me, I'll read the card number to him. Mrs. Tang had no choice but to give the card to Tang Yun. Tang Yun was about to read the card number to Linny when Linny said, Text it to me, in case the transfer is wrong and the money's gone. I'll send it to you then. Tang Yun jumped. She didn't know that Linny was only teasing her. The card number didn't match the name, so the transfer couldn't be made. Linny dialed Xuemin's number after receiving the card number from Tang Yun. Where have you been these 2 days? I called you, but your phone was turned off. Guan Xuemin's voice came through the phone before Linny could say anything. Oh? Grandpa Guan, what's up? Linny didn't think that Guan Xuemin would look for him these 2 days. Yesterday, Lu Tianyi brought Elder Lu over. Elder Lu wanted to thank you personally. After he went back, he noticed that his body was much better. Not only did he eat more, but he also walked like he was flying. It was like he was 10 years younger. Guan Xuemin exclaimed. I'm envious of your medical skills. They came to thank me? Linny smiled. It was probably because House Lu realized his value and wanted to build a good relationship with him. Although there was some unhappiness before, House Lu wasn't stupid. They knew how to make up for it. Yeah, they're going back to Yanjing. There's no use for the villa they bought here anymore, so they wanted to give it to you as a thank you gift, Guan Xuemin said. Just give me your ID number and I'll help you with the transfer. Heh, they're being generous now. Linny shrugged. But I'm short on money now. It's more practical to give me some money. Yes, Lu Tianyi gave you another 10 million. Guan Xiaomin laughed. Guan Xiaomin chuckled and said, I didn't expect that I would get 100 million yuan just like that. I was worried that the pharmaceutical factory wouldn't have enough startup funds. But you managed to get all the startup funds just by treating one patient. I can't help it. I didn't plan to accept the money, but the people in his family aren't that great. Linny smiled. But Elder Lu is not bad, he doesn't put on airs. It's not that he doesn't put on airs, but he thinks that it's important for his family to make friends with a miracle doctor like you. Guan Xiaomin said. Otherwise, they wouldn't give you another red packet. Chapter 344. Thank you, brother-in-law. Right, what did you call me for? I was too busy talking about my business. Xiaomin suddenly remembered that it was Lin Yi who called him. It's like this, Grandpa Guan. I'll give you an account number. Can you transfer 200,000 to me? Lin Yi told Xiaomin the account number Tang Yun had sent him. Yeah, alright. I'll have XIN transfer the money to you through online banking. Xiaomin said without even asking what Lin Yi was planning on doing after writing down the account number. Thank you, Grandpa Guan. As for the medicine company, I'll go talk to you when I have time in the next couple of days. I don't know anything about operations, so I'll have to trouble you. Lin Yi was a bit embarrassed that he could get a share of the money just by providing the prescription. If you don't want to be involved in the operations, it's best if you find a spokesperson. I'm an old man, and I can take care of things on the surface for you, but the actual sales are better for you youngsters. Xiaomin smiled bitterly. I'll be honest with you. I'm an old scholar, and I might not be as good as you are when it comes to business. I see. Lin Yi had only thought of this after hearing Xiaomin's suggestion. He'd only wanted to use Xiaomin's name and provide the prescriptions himself to start a medicine company, but things weren't as simple as he thought after hearing Xiaomin's words. He'd have the reputation and the medicine, but he'd still need to know how to run it. Yeah, my youngest son is a suitable candidate, XIN's father. But I don't want him to get involved in this, Xiaomin suggested. If you don't want to manage it yourself, you need to find someone you can trust to keep an eye on it. Hiring a manager is fine too. Grandpa Guan, isn't Guan Xin a shareholder of the company? She can keep an eye on it for me. Lin Yi suddenly remembered that Guan Xin was a shareholder of the company as well, and so he turned his attention to her. Haha, even if Xin is a shareholder, she still represents me. You'll need to find someone else to represent you. Oh right, if you have time, come over for a bit. I'll send some of the drugs to be tested and approved. Guan Xiaomin smiled. No problem. How about this weekend? Lin Yi thought for a moment. It shouldn't take long to accompany Kong Xiaobo to his second grandpa's birthday banquet. Then, he could go to Guan Xiaomin's place to have a look. He still had some healing potions with him, and he hadn't finished using the ones he made last time. As for the painkiller Huaijuan was using, Xiaomin had the recipe already, and he'd probably be making some first. In the initial stage, it was better to market these two drugs. If there were too many, it would not be able to highlight the magic of each drug. It was only after these two drugs became a hit that other new products were introduced one after another that people would pay more attention to them. Guan Xin took the account card from her grandpa and looked at the username. It was Tang Yun's name. She felt a little disappointed and a little jealous, but she still did as Lin Yi said and transferred 200,000. Mrs. Tang's bank card was opened under Tang Yun's name. Tang Yun used it to store her red packets and pocket money, but after Juqing got injured, Tang Yun donated all the red packets she'd accumulated over the years. Mrs. Tang was too lazy to open a new account, so she used Tang Yun's card as the family's savings card. Beep beep. A message notification sounded. This card was originally bound to Tang Juqing's phone. Juqing took out his phone and looked at the message. He was a little surprised. 200,000? 200,000? Mrs. Tang was surprised at first, but then she was overjoyed. She quickly grabbed her lover's phone and looked at the number on it carefully. She counted the number of zeros on it again and again until she was sure that it was 200,000 and not 20,000. She said happily, "Ian, I told you that Lenny is a good person. You only asked for 150,000, but he transferred 200,000 to you. It seems like he heard what I said just now." Tang Yun looked at her mother's happy face. She didn't know if she should be happy with her or helpless. 200,000. She couldn't afford it. "Old Tang, you have the surgery fees. Let's go to the hospital tomorrow." The happiest person was Mrs. Tang. Her lover's surgery fees were finally settled. After the surgery, her lover would be able to stand up again. She wouldn't have to worry about the family alone. "Sis, is brother-in-law really a rich second generation?" Wei was surprised as well. He felt like he was dreaming. It was just a thought before. He didn't believe that his sister would be able to borrow 150,000 just like that. He didn't think that his sister would be even more influential. He borrowed 150,000 and got 200,000. "What rich second generation?" Tang Yin glared at him. "He's not your brother-in-law either. You still have to pay him back." "Hey sis, you're shy." Wei smiled and nodded. "Of course I have to. Dan and I have to live frugally. We'll pay him back." "What do you know, you brat?" Tang Yin snorted. But then she remembered that Wei wasn't a brat. He was only half a year younger than her, and he and Dan had been dating for a long time. It seemed like he was more experienced than her. "Sis, thank brother-in-law for me. When he comes, you have to tell Dan and me. We have to thank him in person." Wei laughed. "Yeah, Tang Yin sis, I really have to thank him." Dan felt like she was dreaming as well. An hour ago, Wei was still trying to sell his kidney, but now he'd raised the money. Tang Yun's chest hurt as she looked at her mother and brother's happy faces. Was it right or wrong for her to do this? Was this what they meant by sacrificing herself for the happiness of the whole family? Tang Yun gripped her phone tightly as she walked out of the house. She went to the yard again and hesitated. But Linny didn't call. Tang Yun was annoyed. Didn't this guy treat money like it was money? He transferred 200,000 and he didn't even call to check if it was in the account. What if he lost it? Tang Yun dialed Lin Yi's number again. "Hello? Lin Yi?" Tang Yun saw that Lin Yi didn't respond and asked. Lin Yi responded. "What are you doing? Why aren't you talking?" Tang Yun was confused. "Drink some water, it's done." Lin Yi put down the cup in his hand. Tang Yun's call came in while he was drinking. Chapter 345. His Own Happiness. I got the money," Tang Yun whispered. "Thank you, ha? Then how are you going to thank me?" Lin Yi could imagine Tang Yun's face right now, a beautiful girl standing in his yard, holding her phone carefully, talking to him in a low voice. As for how Lin Yi knew that Tang Yun was calling from the yard, it was because he heard the sound of crickets on the other side of the phone. Tang Yun didn't know what to do from Lin Yi's words. Her breathing quickened, her face flushed, and her nose beaded with sweat. "You! How should I thank you? You're the one thanking me, why do I have to say it?" Lin Yi could hear the nervousness in Tang Yun's voice and teased her. Then I'll kiss you?" Tang Yun hesitated before asking timidly. "Sure." Lin Yi didn't want anything from Tang Yun. He wasn't the type of person who would take advantage of others. Of course, it was a different story for people he didn't like. And Tang Yun's heartbeat quickened, she was embarrassed by her own bold move. "When?" Lin Yi asked. You say," Tang Yun replied nervously. "Then now?" Lin Yi asked. Now?" Tang Yun paused. How was she going to kiss now? Was it over the phone? Wasn't that just a fake kiss? Would Lin Yi have such low requirements? And go ahead. Lin Yi, of course, wanted Tang Yun to kiss him for real, but he didn't want to do it because he wanted to borrow money. "You're so annoying." "I'm not ready yet," Tang Yun said shyly after being surprised. When are you ready? Linny smiled. Your kiss is so expensive, 200,000 in one go. Then wouldn't you go bankrupt if I kissed you a few more times? Tang Yun laughed at Lin Yi's words. Yeah, I have to calculate how many times I can be kissed with my current money, Lin Yi said seriously. Then you do it. Tang Yun humphed. Right, why did you transfer me 200,000? Didn't your mother say that your father still needs surgery? Lin Yi said. I heard it, so I transferred an extra 50,000. Thank you. Tang Yun's tears flowed down her eyes. This was the first time she'd felt so happy that she wanted to cry. She didn't even say it, but he'd already said it for her. Was he really a gift from the heavens? All of a sudden, Tang Yun had the urge to spend the rest of her life with him. She felt that she had found the happiness that belonged to her, on the eve of her 18th and 19th birthday. It was a feeling of being cared for, protected, and held in the palm of one's hand. This moment of happiness was unforgettable. Tang Yun's hand was shaking as she held the phone. She gathered her courage and kissed the phone. All right, this is for today. I still owe you one. I'll return it to you when I'm free. With that, Tang Yun quickly hung up the phone. Her body was burning up, and her body was soaked in sweat. Phew! Tang Yun let out a long sigh of relief. She was embarrassed by her bold actions just now. She didn't dare to go back into the house immediately, afraid that her mother and the others would notice. She could only stand in the yard and calm herself down. A mosquito flew by, wanting to bite Tang Yun's fair skin. Tang Yun was so angry that she swung out her palm, wanting to kill the mosquito. Lin Yi, you're so annoying! Why are you so nice to me? I'll slap you to death! Mrs. Tang saw that Tang Yun went to the yard and didn't come back for a long time, so she told Wei to go check on his sister. Wei had just walked out of the house when he heard Tang Yun baring her fangs and claws, saying that she wanted to slap Lin Yi to death. Wei jumped as he looked at his sister. Is brother-in-law a masochist? He's so nice to you, and you want to slap him to death? What do you know, you brat? Tang Yun didn't think that Wei would come out and hear her. She was embarrassed. Hurry up and go back. Oh, I get it. Hitting is affection, scolding is love. Dan always says that too. Wei nodded in realization. Tang Yun was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. Wei happily went back with Dan. Mrs. Tang had already promised them that she would go get the money for them the next morning. Wei, naturally, pushed the matter of selling his kidney away. In a villa on the outskirts of Songsan City, a man with tattoos all over his body received a phone call. He ran to a young man. When bro, we agreed to sell our kidneys, but that kid went back on his words. What? He went back on his words? The young man called when bro frowned. What are you doing? You can't even do such a simple thing? If the Fire Wolf gang gets angry, even my father won't be able to bear the consequences. The supply of kidneys has decreased a lot recently. If this continues, my brother's supply will far surpass us. When bro, I don't want either. But no one is selling their kidneys anymore. People are smarter now. They won't sell their kidneys unless they need money. The tattooed man explained carefully. Are you stupid? How many kidneys could there be in such a scattered manner? When I was studying abroad, I saw a large-scale kidney trafficking organization there. If no one is selling, why don't you find someone else to do it? When bro scolded. When bro, isn't this a bit too cruel? If we get targeted by the police, we'll be in big trouble. The tattooed man was shocked when he heard When bro's suggestion. Even when DeBro was here, he didn't dare to be this reckless. DeBro, your ass. My When bro is in charge now. Don't talk about my brother all the time. When bro sneered. If he didn't trick people to sell their kidneys on a large scale, would the supply of kidneys in Songsan be so tight now? Yes. Yes. The tattooed man accidentally blurted it out. He then remembered that although Brother Da and Brother Wen were biological brothers, they were in a competitive relationship. If you're afraid of the police, why don't you catch those beggars and homeless people? As long as they don't die, no one will care. Wenbro said in disdain. Who's the underground boss of Songzhan? Contact him, I'll pay him a visit. The underground boss of Songzhan is Li Zihua, but he doesn't make the decisions. His boss is in the provincial capital. I don't know who he is, but I heard that he's quite powerful. The tattooed man introduced. Wenbro, are you going to visit him tonight? Chapter 346. An uninvited guest. Yes. The tattooed guy nodded respectfully. Wenbro, where are you going tonight? Can I give you a ride? No need, I have some private stuff to do today. Wenbro waved his hand. Don't follow me. Yes, Wenbro. I'll get you a car then? The tattooed guy asked carefully. Well, drive that Ferrari sports car out for me. Brother Wen ordered. Tonight, however, there was an uninvited guest in Meng Yao's villa. The doorbell rang, and it was Meng Yao, who was upstairs lecturing Yushu. She was very displeased with Yushu for running around naked in the house. Shu, you're 19 already, you can't do that anymore. Do you understand? I understand, Yao Yao. Yushu nodded with a smile. Look at you, you're all smiles whenever I talk about you, but in the end, that big bad guy Lin Yi has it easy. Meng Yao glared at Lin Yi. Be careful not to let him take nude photos of you. Let's see what you'll do then. Oh. Yao Yao, someone's ringing the doorbell downstairs. Should we go take a look? Yushu changed the topic again. What's there to look at? There's Lin Yi running errands for us, what's the rush? Meng Yao didn't think much of it. Oh. It must be Faubert delivering food. I'm hungry, let's go downstairs. Yushu held her stomach, looking like she was about to faint. I'm starving. Meng Yao shook her head and pulled Yushu downstairs. Lin Yi heard someone ringing the doorbell, so he walked out of his room to open the door. He paused when he reached the yard, because it wasn't Faubert, nor was it someone he knew. It was that Jiang Wen he met at the theme park the other day. Jiang Wen? Lin Yi blinked. Why was he here? Jiang Wen, on the other hand, saw that it was Lin Yi who'd come out to open the door. He was at Meng Yao's house. This gave Jiang Wen a bad premonition. He and Meng Yao had progressed to the point where they were living together? And in Meng Yao's villa? Did Pingzhan know about all of this? On the surface, however, Jiang Wen was still smiling warmly. He wouldn't reveal his true feelings. Oh? Isn't this Mr. Lin Yi? What a coincidence, you're here too? I live here. Lin Yi glanced at him and said faintly. How could Lin Yi not hear this guy's probing tone? What a coincidence. As expected, Jiang Wen's expression froze. He already had a bad feeling about this, but he was still hoping for luck. Now, he was absolutely certain that Lin Yi lived here. Jiang Wen clenched his fists. He'd only been abroad for 3 years, and someone else was already there? The former 4 young masters of Pine Mountain had been stolen just like that? Haha, so you're living with Yao Yao now, Mr. Lin. Jiang Wen felt like his heart was bleeding. Even if he won against Lin Yi, he'd still be marrying a second-hand woman. Are you here to check on me? Lin Yi frowned. Why did this guy have so much to say? What do you want? It's like this. You and Yao Yao saved me that day, so I came to thank you. Jiang Wen forced down the unhappiness in his heart, and smiled as he raised the gift in his hand to Lin Yi. Look, I still have something. Let me in first. Lin Yi smiled coldly in his heart. Thank you? You probably didn't even know I lived here a minute ago. What are you thanking me for? You're here to pick up girls, so why are you being so fake? But Lin Yi didn't expose him. What the guy was here for didn't have much to do with him. Lin Yi opened the door and let Jiang Wen in. I wonder if Mr. Chu is home? Jiang Wen asked again after entering the room. Who are you here for? Lin Yi looked at Jiang Wen with disdain. Uncle Chu doesn't live here. Go to the company if you're looking for him. Oh? He doesn't live here anymore. Jiang Wen really did want to ask where Pingzhan was. After all, Pingzhan used to live with Meng Yao before he left the country. Lin Yi ignored him and entered the villa first, letting Jiang Wen follow him. As for the gift in Jiang Wen's hand, Lin Yi wasn't in the mood to take it. It didn't matter who it was for. Meng Yao and Yushu had come downstairs by now, surprised to see Jiang Wen behind Lin Yi. Jiang Wen bro, why are you here? Meng Yao didn't like Jiang Wen very much. Jiang Wen didn't feel like the boy next door anymore. There was an indescribable dark aura around him that made Meng Yao uncomfortable. Haha, I really have to thank you and Mr. Lin at the theme park last time. I'm here to thank you, Jiang Wen said with a smile as he placed the gift on the coffee table in the living room. It was all foreign nourishment products, and it didn't look like something for young people. Lin Yi guessed that this guy might be here to visit Pingzhan, but Pingzhan didn't live here anymore. Jiang Wen bro, when did you become so fake? You wouldn't have done this before, Meng Yao said faintly. She felt that the distance between her and Jiang Wen was getting bigger and bigger. They weren't like siblings anymore. You're telling me that you're going to do nothing if I'm sick? Haha, that's because I'm too old-fashioned. Jiang Wen felt that he hadn't thought things through. He didn't even know where Pingzhan lived before coming here. These things weren't suitable for Meng Yao, but it was even more inappropriate to take them back. But these are things I brought back from abroad. It's fresh. Oh. Yao, these things are worth a lot, right? Why don't we sell them? Yushu asked curiously as she looked at the gifts on the coffee table. Shoo! Meng Yao glared at her. Even if you didn't like Jiang Wen, you still had to give him some face, right? Jiang Wen's mouth twitched. He was completely helpless against Yushu. He couldn't piss her off, and she was Meng Yao's best friend. He didn't dare piss her off. Hee. Yushu giggled, ignoring Jiang Wen as she turned on the TV. The atmosphere in the villa turned cold all of a sudden. You guys talk, I'm going back to my room. Lin Yi stood up and walked to his room. Talking to this Jiang Wen was a waste of time. Chapter 347. Image collapse. Lin Yi really wanted to yell at him. What the hell did it have to do with you where I lived? But this was Meng Yao's villa, and Lin Yi gave the miss some face. He looked at Jiang Wen and ignored him. Meng Yao, naturally, knew what Jiang Wen wanted to know, but couldn't be bothered to answer the question. But Jiang Wen, evidently, didn't have any self-awareness. He continued asking after Lin Yi didn't reply. Yao, don't you guys sleep together at night? Meng Yao frowned, but Yushu spoke up first. I sleep with Yao. Jiang Wen almost teared up at Yushu's words. He wanted to say, good person, really good person. Shoo, Jiang Wen bro has known you for so many years, and you finally said something that makes Jiang Wen bro happy. You're just too good. Jiang Wen knew that his questions were a bit inappropriate, but he had to understand the relationship between Lin Yi and Meng Yao. This was related to his love, after all. He couldn't be careless. Haha, so you're saying that Mr. Lin isn't your boyfriend? Jiang Wen could see something from Meng Yao's attitude towards Lin Yi. He felt that Lin Yi didn't seem like Meng Yao's boyfriend at all. Meng Yao frowned. Jiang Wen bro, what do you want to know? Meng Yao was getting annoyed as well. Wasn't he just trying to confirm her relationship with Lin Yi? Then I'll just tell him and let him leave as soon as he understands. Didn't you tell you very clearly last time? The more Meng Yao said, the more confused Jiang Wen got. Where did this Lin Yi come from? Was he really Meng Yao's boyfriend or not? To be honest, Jiang Wen didn't really believe Yushu's words. After all, the girl didn't even bat an eyelid when it came to lying. She said something about bodyguard and shield last time, and that had a lot of different meanings. Jiang Wen didn't have the time to think about it last time at the theme park restaurant, but the way Meng Yao and Lin Yi looked at each other and didn't seem like a couple at all. So, Yushu was saying that Lin Yi was just Meng Yao's bodyguard? Or was it a shield to drive away those suitors? The more Jiang Wen thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. He wanted to pay a visit and get some information from Pingzhan, but Pingzhan wasn't here. He could only start from the person in question. I'm just asking casually. I don't have any other intentions. I'm just helping you check on him. Jiang Wen smiled. You're my lil sis, of course I'll help you take a look at your boyfriend. Oh, then take a look. Meng Yao was very annoyed. Jiang Wen hadn't been this annoying before, so why was he so impatient after coming back from abroad? Meng Yao could feel that Jiang Wen had feelings for her before, but Jiang Wen had never been this impatient before. Of course, Meng Yao misunderstood Jiang Wen. Jiang Wen was impatient because he saw his love rival. There weren't any suitors around Meng Yao that could be a rival, so Jiang Wen wasn't impatient at all. He thought that Meng Yao would be his sooner or later, and it didn't matter if it was sooner or later. But now, it was different. Lin Yi's appearance had completely messed up Jiang Wen's plans. He couldn't help but panic. From the looks of it, Lin Yi and Meng Yao didn't have a deep relationship yet. If he didn't panic now, wouldn't he be giving up? Haha, alright. If that's the case, I'll invite Mr. Lin Yi out for dinner tomorrow night. I want to thank him for saving my life, and I also want to help you check on him, Jiang Wen said. Yao, what do you think? Give your guy a break? He can go if he wants, what does it have to do with me? Meng Yao said nonchalantly. Alright, I'll go talk to him. Jiang Wen heard Meng Yao's words and felt relieved. Meng Yao didn't care about Lin Yi at all. It meant that the two weren't as close as he thought. With that, Jiang Wen stood up and walked towards Lin Yi's room. He knocked on the door, and Lin Yi opened it to see Jiang Wen. What do you need? Haha, it's like this. Are you free tomorrow night? I'll treat you to dinner to express my gratitude. Jiang Wen smiled as he patted Lin Yi's shoulder. What do you think, Mr. Lin? Do me the honor? You're treating me to dinner? Lin Yi looked at Jiang Wen like he was an idiot. Do you have too much money to burn? I'm not going. Jiang Wen was a little embarrassed by Lin Yi's words. Mr. Lin, Yao agreed to it. Are you saying that because you're afraid that she won't? That was what he said, but Jiang Wen was feeling a little disdainful inside. Who the hell was this guy? Trying to steal Meng Yao from me? If I don't show you what I'm capable of, you country bumpkin wouldn't know your place. Oh? The miss agreed? Lin Yi paused and looked at Meng Yao. She nodded at him. Lin Yi had no choice but to say, All right, tomorrow then. Where are we eating? Meng Yao actually didn't want Lin Yi to eat with Jiang Wen. Whether they ate or not had nothing to do with Meng Yao. The problem was that she was really annoyed with Jiang Wen. He kept asking questions in front of her. She might as well let him ask Lin Yi tomorrow. She needed to leave as soon as possible. She still needed to rest. Tomorrow night at 6, I'll wait for you here on time. We'll decide on the location tomorrow. Jiang Wen was even more confused. This Lin Yi didn't seem like someone who took orders from others. Why did he agree without a second thought when Meng Yao asked him to go? Could it be that this guy was really just a bodyguard and not Meng Yao's boyfriend? At that thought, Jiang Wen felt that it was very possible. Yushu's words couldn't be trusted, and Lin Yi might really have nothing to do with Meng Yao. Oh, okay. Lin Yi nodded. If this guy wanted to treat, then so be it. He'd eat his way out of the house tomorrow. How about I bring a brother with me? Sure, no problem. Jiang Wen nodded, agreeing to it. After getting Lin Yi's answer, Jiang Wen was satisfied. Meng Yao, on the other hand, had to walk him to the door out of politeness. She sighed in relief after Jiang Wen left. You're asking me to eat with him tomorrow? Lin Yi asked. He felt that Meng Yao was acting a little strange. Chapter 348. Just who was her brother? Jiang Wen was making Meng Yao feel really bored and confused right now. Who was Lin Yi? That was her personal business. What did it have to do with him? Checking up on her? Did she need him checking up on her? Geez, I thought you had some ulterior motive for asking me to eat with him. Lin Yi was a little speechless. I shouldn't have said yes if I'd known. Well, it's fine. You go teach him a lesson tomorrow. He's been an eyesore for a long time now. Yushu raised her fist. He's nothing much, but he's so cocky, thinking that the Songhan Young Master title's something. Isn't he just picking the biggest one out of the bunch? Shu, your brother's the head of the Songhan Young Masters. Meng Yao said as she looked at Yushu, speechless. My brother? I don't think he's as strong as Shield Bro. He can't even handle that Lingshan girl. One word from Shield Bro and that Song girl's so obedient. Yushu said excitedly at the mention of Lingshan. Shu, why do I get the feeling that Yutian isn't your real brother, but Lin Yi is? Meng Yao frowned. Her best friend couldn't have fallen for Lin Yi, could she? She was talking about Lin Yi every time she opened her mouth, getting touched, kissed, and hugged by him, and she didn't feel any disgust towards him at all. Was Shu falling for him? He. Of course he's my real brother. I admire him a lot, but he's just too weak in front of women. Wouldn't some girl give in to him if he were a little tougher? Yushu said with a smile, not caring at all. Shu, you're a girl too. Do you want to be a strict husband in the future? Or do you have masochistic tendencies? Meng Yao said. She was a girl, but she was speaking up for a man. What kind of logic was that? Yao, I just want Shield Bro to break that Jiangwen's spirit tomorrow, Yushu said. Oh, I misspoke, Jiangwen Bro. Lin Yi ignored the two girls and yawned before going back to his room to sleep. Shield Bro, I support you. I'll wait for your good news tomorrow night, Yushu called out. Shu, you know Jiangwen's family background. You're just causing trouble for Lin Yi. Meng Yao frowned helplessly. He's not Zhong Pingliang, not someone Lin Yi can deal with easily. What if something happens to Lin Yi if you drag him into this? Meng Yao may have been indifferent towards Lin Yi on the surface, even a little disgusted, but she wasn't an unreasonable person. Plus, she didn't hate Lin Yi living in this house anymore. Naturally, she wouldn't cause trouble for him. Although her father had kept it a secret from her, and didn't tell her what Lin Yi had been up to these past 2 days, she still knew a little about the crisis her father was facing. Lin Yi had solved it all quietly, so how could she cause more trouble for him? Yao, are you worried? Yushu's eyebrows and eyes turned into crescents as she smiled at Meng Yao. My heart aches. Why would I? Meng Yao humphed. He's our follower, and now that he's pissed off Jiangwen, of course we'll have to protect him when Jiangwen comes looking for trouble. So if you let him go looking for trouble, you'll be looking for trouble for us. Oh, it's fine. I'll deal with Jiangwen Bro next time. Yushu took it all on. She was quite good at dealing with Jiangwen. All right, let's go to sleep. Meng Yao yawned as well. It was already past 10, and Jiangwen had been dawdling for more than an hour. Meng Yao was tired to death. The next day, when Lin Yi saw Kang Xiaobo, the kid was overjoyed. Boss, you're back. I was afraid that you wouldn't make it to my second grandpa's birthday party. I won't, I said 2 days, so it's 2 days. It's only Thursday, there's still a few days left. Right, is it Saturday or Sunday? Lin Yi asked. Sunday, but it's not in the city. We'll leave early on Saturday. My second grandpa's house is in Donghai, Kang Xiaobo said. All right, we'll leave Saturday afternoon then. Lin Yi nodded. Right, how's Fen? She can leave the hospital now. Her body was too weak due to malnutrition. I'm going to get her discharged this afternoon, Kang Xiaobo said. My parents are coming with me on Saturday, and I don't know how to tell them about Fen. I don't know if they'll accept it. I don't think that's important. What's important is what you think. Lin Yi waved his hand. Xiaobo, do you really like Fen? Tell me the truth. Kang Xiaobo hesitated. Nonsense, why would I ask you if you don't tell me the truth? Lin Yi glared at him. To be honest, when I first saw her picture, I was just moved. After all, it's normal to want to pursue a beautiful girl. Kang Xiaobo scratched his head in embarrassment. Just like how I used to like Tang Yun, Chu Mingyao, and Qin Yushu. But I know that it's just a fantasy. None of them will like me. If it wasn't for you, Tang Yun might not even recognize me now. I liked Fen. At first, I sympathized with her because she's too pitiful and lovable. So, I couldn't help but want to give her more care and love. It's just that after a long time, I went to the hospital every day to accompany her, talk to her, and eat with her. I gradually got used to this feeling. If I don't see her for a day, I'll miss her. I think I can confirm that I like her. Do you like her or love her? Lin Yi asked. Is there a difference? Kang Xiaobo shook his head blankly. Maybe there's a difference. Lin Yi sighed. He used to like a girl, the kind that he liked very much. She was Xiaoning. People say that you can sacrifice anything for love. So, Lin Yi sometimes thought that his feelings for Xiaoning couldn't be considered love. But if it wasn't love, why would he always think of her? Was it the rules of the industry that restricted him? He had to abide by his professional ethics, or he didn't have the courage to take that step? Maybe it was both. Or he couldn't give Xiaoning the life she wanted. At least, he couldn't give it back then. But now? Lin Yi shook his head. Although he knew that escaping wasn't the solution, he had chosen to escape all these years. It was even more impossible for Lin Yi to take that step. Chapter 349. Tang Yun's Treat. There are two ways. Lin Yi's thoughts were pulled back to reality by Kang Xiaobo's words. He shook his head, not wanting to think about those things anymore. At the very least, there was a huge disparity between his status and Xiaoning's. Although he had 100 million and a share of Pingzhan Industries, it was nothing compared to Xiaoning's family background. What way? Kang Xiaobo was overjoyed. First, you tell them the truth and try to get their understanding, Lin Yi said. I don't think that's possible. Kang Xiaobo's face was bitter. I wouldn't be worried if I could convince them. Second, don't say that Xiaofan is your girlfriend. Just say that she's your classmate. I won't bring Tang Yun, and Xiaofan will come with me. They won't suspect anything then, Lin Yi said. That's a good idea. But if Tang Yun doesn't go, can Xiaofan go? Kang Xiaobo was hesitant. That depends on what you tell Xiaofan. Lin Yi patted Kang Xiaobo's shoulder. Let's go to the classroom. Pin Liang was very depressed today. He knew that his uncle had left Pingzhan Industries, and he didn't know how he felt about his uncle's failure. Was it disappointment, or was it something else? Pin Liang realized that he was even a little excited. Subconsciously, he didn't want Pingzhan's position to be taken away by his uncle. If that happened, even if he got Mengyao, House Zhong would just be his uncle's subsidiary. But now, if he got Mengyao, House Zhong would soar. Mengyao was Pingzhan's only daughter, and he would become his only son-in-law. How could he not transfer some of the shares to him? And so, thinking about his bright future, Pin Liang was filled with hope and fighting spirit. However, he didn't know where to start. He couldn't write the letter of blood. Every time he wrote it, he would lose a lot of blood. If this continued, he would lose too much blood and faint. Xiaofu, on the other hand, didn't dare come up with any random ideas. Pin Liang had asked him a couple of times, but Xiaofu kept saying that he'd think of something else. The two of them sank into depression once more, and it seemed like they wouldn't be harassing Mengyao again until they came up with a plan. During the last class of the morning, Lin Yi received a message from Tang Yun asking him what he was doing at noon. Lin Yi replied with a text message telling her that he had nothing to do at noon, and asked if she was busy. Tang Yun replied after a while. "Wanna go to the cafeteria together?" "Ha!" Lin Yi couldn't help but smile as he looked at Tang Yun's message. Did Tang Yun finally open up to him? Did he take the initiative to ask me out for a meal? Although part of it was because of the 200,000 yuan yesterday, if Tang Yun didn't accept him from the bottom of her heart, she wouldn't take the initiative to ask him out for a meal. Tang Yun wanted to borrow money, and he believed that as long as she asked, there would be a lot of rich secret admirers in the school who would take the initiative to ask her out. At noon, Kang Xiaobo was going to the hospital to handle the discharge procedures for Xiaofan. He also wanted to talk about going to the birthday party this weekend. Lin Yi, on the other hand, accepted Tang Yun's invitation and came to the shade of a tree next to the field. Tang Yun didn't want to wait in front of the cafeteria, so she asked Lin Yi to wait here. This was the place where the two of them had their first date. It wasn't really a date, but Tang Yun had some special feelings for this place. It was also at that time that Lin Yi held her hand and announced in front of Zhou Ruoming and Wang Jifeng that she was his woman. Tang Yun was a bit nervous. She held the meal card in her hand and couldn't sit still. The 5th class in the morning was a test. Tang Yun handed in her paper first and waited under the tree. She waited for a long time, but she didn't see Lin Yi. Tang Yun looked at her phone. Could it be that Lin Yi sent her a text and she didn't receive it? But it didn't seem possible. Just as Tang Yun was getting anxious, she saw a boy running towards her. Tang Yun smiled and waved at Lin Yi. If it was before, Tang Yun wouldn't dare to do something like this in school. The school rules were very strict. But now, the school rules were useless in front of Tang Yun. Wang Jifeng didn't even care about her and Lin Yi. What was there for her to be afraid of? Tang Yun even had a little rebellious in her heart. She had been a good student for so many years, and she could finally let loose like those bad students. Did you wait long? Lin Yi saw a layer of sweat on Tang Yun's forehead. It was obvious that she had waited for a while. Not really. The last class was a test, so I handed in my paper first, Tang Yun said shyly as she combed her hair. Then why didn't you text me? I would have come out earlier. He'd gotten used to skipping class. The dean had already given him a warning, and the teachers of the other subjects didn't bother with him, thinking that he was some rich young master who was here to kill time. It's fine. Tang Yun shook her head. I'll treat you. You treat me? Lin Yi looked at Tang Yun, surprised. Don't look at me like that. I can only treat you to the cafeteria. Tang Yun raised the cafeteria card in her hand. All the money at home was used for my dad's surgery. Although there might be some left over, it's hard to say if we still need money in the future. So if you want me to treat you to a big meal, we'll have to wait until I earn my own money. No, my cafeteria card has a lot of money in it. It's the same if you use mine. It'll be a waste if you don't eat. Lin Yi took out the card from his pocket and gave it to Tang Yun. How's Uncle's condition? Tang Jiuqing's problem was with his bones, and he needed surgery. Although Lin Yi was good at acupuncture and medicine, he couldn't perform surgery for Tang Jiuqing on behalf of the hospital. Why are you giving me your card? Tang Yun paused. My mom took my dad to the hospital early in the morning. He should be in the hospital now. But he's been checked regularly, and he's just waiting for surgery. I don't usually eat at the cafeteria, and I'll eat with you in the future, so I'm giving you my card, Lin Yi said. Is there anything I can help with at the hospital? I don't think so. Tang Yun shook her head, her eyes red. Lin Yi, thank you. I don't know how I can thank you. Tang Yun was really touched. Lin Yi didn't take the opportunity to threaten her, and he didn't make things difficult for her either. Why are you saying this? Lin Yi held Tang Yun's hand. Let's go eat. Chapter 350. Chapter 350. Ward and surgery. Lin Yi and Tang Yun's relationship had spread throughout the school. Their relationship wasn't a secret anymore, and Lin Yi announced that Tang Yun was his woman in front of Wang Jifeng. This kind of shocking effect made all the guys and girls who had secret relationships jealous. Quite a number of girls told their boyfriends that they'd be willing to do anything if their boyfriends could confess to them in front of Wang Jifeng like Lin Yi did. The male students who had bad intentions wanted to turn into Lin Yi immediately, but no one dared to do so after thinking about the consequences of confessing. If Lin Yi said it, it would be fine, but if she said it, she'd probably be expelled. Before, Tang Yun felt embarrassed, but after hearing the rumors from the students, she felt very happy. At least, many people were envious of her. Even Zhou Roaming, who used to flirt with her, would walk around her now. This was all because of Lin Yi. Of course, Zhou Roaming wasn't much, but what made everyone envious was that even Wang Jifeng would smile and nod at Tang Yun when he saw her. It was hard for Tang Yun to imagine that this was still the same dean who'd scolded her so badly after she'd splashed water all over him. In fact, Wang Jifeng couldn't say it out loud. Tang Yun was Lin Yi's girlfriend. Who knew how far they had progressed? Did they even go to a hotel? What if Lin Yi remembered the scene that morning and told Tang Yun about it? Wouldn't Tang Yun know about it? So Wang Jifeng didn't dare to offend Tang Yun. He was even more afraid that Tang Yun would hate him because of that incident. That was why he was so kind to her. The phone in Tang Yun's pocket vibrated. Tang Yun froze. Only Lin Yi, Kong Xiaobo, Lu Xinwen, Xiaofan, and her parents knew her number. She was with Linny right now. Who could it be? Wait, let me take a call. Tang Yun pulled her hand out of Lin Yi's grip and took out her phone from her pocket. It was her mother's number. Mom should know that I'm at school. Why would she call me at this time? Tang Yun was confused, but still picked up the phone. Hello? Mom? Ian, are you at school? Mrs. Tang asked anxiously. Yeah, I'm at school. I'm about to go to the cafeteria for lunch. What's the matter? Tang Yun was confused after hearing her mother's tone. Are you with Linny? Mrs. Tang asked. Tang Yun was even more shocked. Her mother called to ask about this? Asking me if I've been with Linny? Although it was funny, Tang Yun still said shyly. Yeah. Yes. That's good. Mrs. Tang sighed in relief. Here's the thing. Go talk to Linny. Doesn't he know someone from the hospital? Ask him to help you find someone. Tang Yun wasn't happy after hearing her mother's request. He's already lent us the money. Just go to the hospital for the surgery. What's the point of looking for someone? Isn't it troublesome enough? Ian, you don't know how crowded the wards are. If you don't know anyone, you'll have to sleep in the hallway. You don't want your dad to sleep in the hallway, do you? Mrs. Tang heard about Linny asking for a ward for Xiaofan. Also, I want to find an orthopedic doctor for your dad's surgery, but his schedule is up. He only does 2 surgeries a week. It's already booked for the second half of the year. Can you talk to Linny and ask him to cut the queue for your dad? Tang Yun sighed in her heart. She didn't want to trouble Linny anymore, but her mother was telling the truth. She wouldn't have to worry about finding a good doctor to operate on her dad. Linny was very close to Tang Yun. When she answered the phone, he smelled the fragrance on her white neck. It made Tang Yun uncomfortable. She wanted to push Linny away to stop him, but her mother's words distracted Tang Yun. She forgot to scold Linny. However, Linny heard Mrs. Tang's words clearly. Before Tang Yun could say anything, Linny took Tang Yun's phone. I'll talk to Auntie. Tang Yun knew that Linny heard it. If he picked up the phone, it meant that he was willing to help. She couldn't help but look at Linny gratefully. Auntie, I'm Linny. I heard what you said. Linny smiled. It's nothing. It's not a problem. Tang Yun blushed a little. She was talking to her mother on the phone, and Linny overheard their conversation. How close was she to Linny? Her mother wouldn't think too much, right? In fact, Mrs. Tang thought too much. She thought that her daughter and Linny were hugging each other. However, she didn't reprimand her daughter. Instead, she was even happier. Mrs. Tang was extremely satisfied with Linny. Hearing Linny agree, she was immediately happy. That's great! Lin, I'll wait for your good news. Okay, I'll make a call now. Tell me the name of the chief physician. Linny smiled. The hospital room wasn't a problem. Fan was going to be discharged today. He could just give the room to Tang Juqing. The chief physician is called Su Tianda, Mrs. Tang said. If it doesn't work, we can find the deputy chief physician. Okay, I'll try. He ended the call with Mrs. Tang and called Guan Xuemin, not bothering with pleasantries. Guan Xuemin made a note of Su Tianda's name, agreeing to it without hesitation. Okay, it's done, Linny said to Tang Yun. You can call your mother now. Okay, thank you. Tang Yun didn't know what to say. What else could she say other than thank him? Don't thank me next time. It feels distant. Let's meet Grandpa Guan on Sunday. Right, Guan Xian's grandfather, Linny said. Guan Xian's grandfather? Tang Yun didn't know why, but she felt a little disappointed. Thinking about the relationship between Guan Xian and Linny, Tang Yun felt a little jealous. Was this jealousy? Tang Yun shook her head. She didn't think that she would feel jealous one day. Tang Yun's phone rang again before she could call her mother. She picked it up and heard her mother's excited voice. Ian, it's done! You don't know, but Dean Qin arranged it himself. Director Su said that he'll arrange an additional surgery next Monday. Chapter 351. A short period of silence. Een, what's wrong? Why don't you look happy? A mother knew her daughter's mood. Mrs. Tang immediately noticed that something was wrong with Tang Yin's voice. It's nothing. Tang Yin shook her head. Mom, can you handle the paperwork for Dad first? I'll go see you guys after school tonight. All right, go eat with Lin then. It's already 12, you guys better eat before you starve. Mrs. Tang didn't ask much as she hung up and happily went with Dean Qin to handle the paperwork. Wang Xueming had spoken to Mrs. Tang about the medical fees. Naturally, Mrs. Tang was exempted from the medical fees, and Dean Qin was given some benefits within the scope of his duties. What's wrong? Are you unhappy? Linny glanced at Tang Yun and smiled. No. Tang Yin, naturally, wouldn't admit what she was thinking. Let's go eat. Lin Yi and Tang Yun arrived at the cafeteria. There were a lot of people in the cafeteria, and it was very noisy. But those who saw Lin Yi automatically made a path for them. Lin Yi had already surpassed the Big Four in school. Pin Liang and Zhou Ruoming had been beaten up so badly that they didn't even dare fight back. Who would dare mess with someone like that? Tang Yin ordered 2 vegetable dishes and a meat dish, along with half a kilo of rice. The two found a table and sat down. There were already 2 students eating at the table, but when they saw Lin Yi, they quickly gulped down their food and moved away. Lin Yi was speechless. He didn't think that his notoriety would reach this point. In fact, Lin Yi hadn't done anything bad, nor was he a bully like Zhou Ruoming. All he did was teach Zhou Ruoming and Pin Liang a lesson. He didn't do anything else, did he? Tang Yin put the food on the table and realized that she'd been in too much of a rush. There were a lot of people in the line, so she just ordered half a kilo of rice. It was a little hard to eat now. Tang Yin wanted to get another bowl, but was afraid that Lin Yi would think that she didn't like eating with him. She was hesitating when Lin Yi spoke up. Let's eat together. You don't mind, do you? Yeah. Tang Yin shook her head. Since Lin Yi said that, she couldn't go get another bowl. She was a little shy, but she still agreed. Tang Yin carefully ate the other side of the rice, feeling countless eyes on her. There were couples eating in the cafeteria, but very few dared to eat a plate of rice in public. Lin Yi and Tang Yin didn't think about eating a plate of rice before. It was only because of their carelessness that they ended up in this situation. In fact, there weren't many students who dared to look at him directly. Who would want to mess with him? If they looked at him for too long and he misunderstood that they were interested in Tang Yun, it wouldn't be worth it to get beaten up. Tang Yun didn't have a big appetite. She ate a little and was full. She quickly put down her chopsticks and looked around. Seeing that no one was looking, she let out a sigh of relief. But now, it wasn't a matter of whether she hated Lin Yi or not. It was a matter of whether Lin Yi hated her or not. She didn't eat much and was already full. The rest of the rice would be Lin Yi's. He must eat the part that she ate. Did this count as an indirect kiss? Tang Yin felt like she had a little white rabbit in her arms. She jumped up and down. She was a little shy, but also a little excited. She thought about what she said on the phone last night. She still owed him a kiss. In what form and in what way would this kiss be given to him? Back in the hospital, Lin Yi only asked Tang Yin to kiss his face. But now that their relationship was a step closer, would he kiss her on the mouth? Tang Yin didn't dare to think about it, but she didn't feel any repulsion. She used to feel disgusted when she saw the male and female characters kissing. If a man kissed her on the mouth, she would feel disgusted. But now, she didn't feel like vomiting. Instead, she was looking forward to it. Lin Yi was afraid that Tang Yin wouldn't have enough to eat, so he ate very slowly. But after Tang Yin finished eating, he cleaned up everything on the table. Tang Yin was stunned. Are you full? Tang Yin didn't think that Lin Yi had such a big appetite. He didn't look fat, but he ate so much. I'm full. Lin Yi nodded. Then, let's go back to class. Tang Yin didn't want to leave Lin Yi like this. Let's walk around the field. Lin Yi stood up and picked up the plates. He walked out of the cafeteria with Tang Yin and left the plates at the door. The bright afternoon sun made Tang Yin squint her eyes. She put her hand in front of her forehead to block the sunlight. She looked at the students playing on the field. She felt a sense of happiness. She met Linny when she was about to leave the school. Tang Yin wanted to cheer, but there was a sense of unease in her heart. It was as if Linny didn't belong to her. The happiness in front of her was short-lived. In her daze, a big hand grabbed onto Tang Yin's. Tang Yin came back to her senses. She hesitated for a moment before grabbing onto the big hand. Which university do you want to go to? This was the first time Tang Yin worried about their future. She was afraid that this happiness would disappear in the blink of an eye. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. Linny shook his head. He would go wherever Meng Yao went. There was no doubt about that. He smiled to make Tang Yin feel at ease. I'll go wherever you go. Yeah. Tang Yin smiled as she welcomed the sunlight. Her heart was finally at ease, but she was still worried. What if one of us doesn't get enough points? We can spend money. Linny shrugged. Your worries are unnecessary. Nouveau riche, Tang Yin said with a smile, but she was happy that Linny was taking her seriously. The two of them walked under the shade of the tree and found a stone step to sit down. Tang Yin seemed to have a special liking for the shade. She always liked to come here. She supported her chin with her hand and enjoyed the peace. Linny stretched lazily and stayed by Tang Yun's side quietly. But this brief moment of peace, someone wanted to destroy it. Chapter 352. Does she like you? Yao Yao, let's go sit under the shade for a bit, Yushu suggested with a naughty smile. What for? Watch that Linny hit on girls? Meng Yao frowned as she looked at Linny and Tang Yun sitting together. She didn't like it at all. It was daytime, wasn't it? It was a workday too, and you're messing around with the school beauty instead of being my follower. She and Shu were both school beauties, so why did this guy only have eyes for Tang Yun? She was his boss, the miss. Even if he had a crush on someone, it should be her first. Meng Yao felt like she had been wronged. Was she that unattractive? Meng Yao didn't even care if he liked her or not, but the fact that he was ignoring her and going after another girl pissed her off. It was a blatant disregard. Even if he didn't like her, couldn't he just go for Shu? Why did he have to go for Tang Yun? Although, one had to admit that Linny and Tang Yun in their school uniform really did look like a couple from afar. Perhaps they were a couple after all. Heh, let's see how he hits on girls, we'll learn from him. Yushu nodded. Shu, we're girls, we can't hit on girls. Our sexual orientation is fine, otherwise we'd be a couple a long time ago. Meng Yao looked at Yushu speechlessly. Oh, let's go see Tang Yin then, let's learn how to hit on handsome guys. Yushu was just finding an excuse to keep Meng Yao company to satisfy her curiosity. Is Linny a handsome guy? Do I even need to hit on him? Meng Yao curled her lips. I don't like him at all. But she still walked towards Linny with Yushu despite her words. Linny couldn't help but smile bitterly when he saw the two misses walking towards him. These two girls were probably here to cause trouble, and it seemed like Yushu had tricked Meng Yao into coming here. With her personality, there was no way she'd get involved in something like this. Yao sis, the shade here is very cool. Yushu pulled Meng Yao to the steps under the tree, but the steps were occupied by Linny and Tang Yin. Yushu didn't have a place to sit. Hey, Arrow. Move over a little, give me the shade. Yushu almost said shield bro when she opened her mouth, but luckily she stopped herself in time. She couldn't expose her relationship with Linny in front of outsiders, or Yao Yao would be pissed. Tang Yun was a little annoyed by Yushu's overbearing words. We were under the tree first, why should we give it to you? But a few days ago when she went to see Linny, Yushu had asked her about it passionately, so Tang Yun didn't want to get angry. But Linny didn't seem to hear anything, and didn't move an inch. Tang Yun, on the other hand, was starting to panic. Lin Yi's reputation had surpassed the Big Four, but even the Big Four didn't dare mess with Yushu. She was an existence that transcended the Big Four, and even Pin Liang and Zhou Roaming were quite afraid of her. Tang Yun had heard about how Wu Shaokan had been punished for talking bad about Yushu, and so she was a little afraid that Yushu would take revenge on Lin Yi. Why don't we go? Don't mind them. Lin Yi had already guessed that Yushu was here to mess around, and he didn't want to bother with her. He'd leave her alone for now, and she'd leave later if she got bored. Yushu was a little depressed that Lin Yi didn't work, but she didn't want to expose her relationship with Lin Yi. She could only look at Meng Yao pitifully. There's a tree over there, let's sit there. Meng Yao wouldn't fight with Lin Yi like Yushu did. Yao, but I like it here. Yushu didn't want to leave. She hadn't heard what Lin Yi and Tang Yun were talking about yet. Then you stay here, I'm leaving. Meng Yao felt a little awkward. What was she supposed to do when Lin Yi was hitting on a girl here? Oh, okay, Yushu said as Meng Yao started walking away. She could only follow her to the shade on the other side of the tree. Meng Yao found a clean stair and sat down. She took out her MP4 and started watching an episode of Pleasant Goat and Big Wolf. With Yushu, on the other hand, kept her eyes on the MP4 and glanced at Lin Yi from time to time. She wanted to see what he was doing, but he was still as lazy as ever. He wasn't flirting with Tang Yun either. She lost interest and turned her attention back to Meng Yao's MP4. What are they doing? Why are they acting so weird? Tang Yun didn't understand what was going on with Yushu. She came over to scold Lin Yi, and then left. What was going on? You mean Yushu? Don't bother with her. That girl is always crazy. Who knows what she's doing all day long? Lin Yi shrugged. Tang Yun looked at Lin Yi oddly. Her instincts told her that Lin Yi was hiding something from her, but she didn't know what it was. Are you close with her? She's in our class, of course I'm close. Lin Yi nodded vaguely. Oh. She likes you? Tang Yun's words were shocking. What? Lin Yi's eyes went wide as he looked at Tang Yun, shocked. What did you say? She likes me? Yushu did confess to him, but it was all fake. He didn't think that Yushu would like him. The girl was a little immature. Probably not at the stage where she'd like guys yet, right? Yushu was a little too young for that. It's nothing. Tang Yun shook her head. It was just a sudden feeling. She thought that Yushu coming and leaving for no reason was weird. But it didn't make sense. How could she like Lin Yi? Yushu and Meng Yao weren't too far. Lin Yi was in no mood at all. He felt like he was being watched by his boss. He stood up dispiritedly. Let's go back to class, okay? Tang Yun felt embarrassed with two people watching them. She stood up after hearing Lin Yi's words. She walked towards the school building with Lin Yi. Yao. Shield bro left. Yushu had been watching Lin Yi the whole time. Let's leave then. Meng Yao frowned as she looked at her MP4. Chapter 353. Chapter 353. The misconcern after school. Lin Yi drove Tang Yun to the hospital before driving back to the villa. Jiang Wen's car was already waiting outside the villa. Lin Yi parked the car in front of the villa and greeted Meng Yao. Meng Yao was the one who agreed to the dinner with Jiang Wen tonight, so she didn't say anything. Meng Yao spoke up suddenly when Lin Yi walked to the door. Don't drink so much, and don't go to those dirty places. Ah? Lin Yi paused. He didn't think that Meng Yao would care about people. Her tone was commanding, but Lin Yi could hear the concern in her voice. It's nothing, do whatever you want. Meng Yao turned her head away, ignoring Lin Yi. Meng Yao could vaguely guess what Jiang Wen was planning to do. Meng Yao didn't usually participate in the activities of these rich kids, but she had some understanding of their methods, especially with a little spy like Yushu. She wasn't a stranger to what Jiang Wen and his people were doing. This was also why Meng Yao didn't have any other feelings for Jiang Wen other than that of a sister. Drinking and playing with women all day, and now he wanted her as his girlfriend? Why? Ha, don't worry, I'm actually a good girl. Lin Yi smiled and left the villa. Shield bro, you go teach those two a lesson. I'll cheer for you, make sure to embarrass them. Yushu waved her fist. I'll try my best. Lin Yi nodded. Even if Yushu didn't say anything, Lin Yi would have taught this annoying Jiang Wen a lesson anyway. He didn't want him to bother him all the time. After Linny left, Yushu spoke up. Yao Yao, I have some big news for you. Oh? What did you hear when you went out? Meng Yao sent Yushu out as a spy again. Linny could sense her, but Jiang Wen might not be able to. So Yushu heard everything Jiang Wen said. Jiang Wen bro and Taizao bro said that they're going to order a chicken for Shield bro, and they're going to record it and mail it to your dad to ruin his reputation. Then you can break up with him, Yushu said. Chicken? Meng Yao blinked, ordering a chicken? Only then did she realize that Yushu was using a demonstrative pronoun. She thought it was a dish from the restaurant. She blushed and said, Shoo, don't say such ugly words. Call her miss. Oh, that's a prostitute. They went to find a prostitute for Shield bro. Yushu nodded. Yao Yao, do you think we should tell Shield bro to be careful? No need. If he's that stupid to fall for it, he can only blame himself for being too perverted. It's just right for daddy to fire him. Meng Yao humphed, thinking that Jiang Wen was really filthy. She wondered if Yushu's brother was the same as them in the past. Linny walked out of the villa and saw a Porsche 911 behind Jiang Wen's Ferrari. Beside the car was Su Taizao, the guy he met at the theme park restaurant the other day. Linny didn't have a good impression of Taizao. The guy was yelling and screaming that day, and Linny didn't like it at all. But now, the guy was all smiles as he greeted Linny. Mr. Linny, it's nice to see you. Thank you for what you did for Bro that day. Linny waved his hand and ignored him. Jiang Wen walked up to him. Bro Lin, I didn't expect you to be in the same class as Yao Yao. Jiang Wen had already found out that Linny was Meng Yao's classmate, so it was natural for him to call him Lil Bro Lin according to their age. I guess so. Linny nodded faintly. Aren't we going to eat? That's right, let's go now. I've booked a room at Starlight Hotel, let's go now. Jiang Wen introduced, worried that Linny didn't know about it. Starlight Hotel is one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. We used to go there a lot. There's special services too. Taizao walked over as well, patting Lin Yi's shoulder like a family member, as if saying that they were both men, and they had a tacit understanding. Is that so? I'll have to see it then. Linny nodded, looking at them expectantly. He was smiling coldly inwardly. Meng Yao was right, these two were up to no good, trying to set a trap for him. Jiang Wen breathed out in relief when he saw that Linny didn't reject the idea. Taizao, on the other hand, was overjoyed. He was worried that Linny wouldn't agree, but it'd be great if he did. There were plenty of programs, and he wasn't afraid that Linny wouldn't be satisfied. But you'd have to pay a price for it after it's over. Haha. Let's go now. Do you want to take my car? Jiang Wen pointed at his Ferrari. It's fine, I'll drive myself. Linny pointed at his broken van. Jiang Wen paused, not expecting Linny to drive a broken van instead of a sports car. But since Linny was willing, he didn't say anything. Sure, it's more convenient if we have our own car. Jiang Wen and Taizao got on the car and drove towards Starlight Hotel, with Linny following behind. Starlight Hotel was one of the most luxurious hotels in Songshan, after all. It had dining, entertainment, karaoke, and nightclubs in one place. Just the parking lot alone was as big as a field. Jiang Wen and Taizao drove the car into the parking lot, and Linny followed them in, only to be stopped by a security guard. Hey, delivery through the back door! The guard glared at Linny. Don't you know the rules? You're new, right? Delivery? Linny paused, knowing that the guard had misunderstood. He shook his head. I'm here to eat. Eat? The guard paused at Linny's words before laughing out loud. You're driving this car to eat? Do you know what the lowest price is here? 1 meal is enough to buy this car of yours. Alright, stop messing around, let's go. I'm really here to eat. Linny didn't want to argue with this snobbish guard. I don't care what the lowest price is here, someone's paying. Someone's paying? Who'd treat you? Alright, stop acting cool and get the fuck out. I've seen a lot of people like you. There's at least 8 or 10 of them every day, trying to steal something from the parking lot? The guard looked at Linny with disdain. Who'd treat you unless they're retarded? Chapter 354. Chapter 354. Jiang Wen's ploy. After all, the people he interacted with were all rich people, and it was only natural for him to feel a sense of superiority. He felt like he was the cream of the crop, and he looked down on the poor. The security guard would bow and scrape to those who drove luxurious cars, but Lin Yi's old car made him think that he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Who the hell are you calling an idiot? Tai Zhao slapped the guard's face. He and Jiang Wen had parked the car, and since they hadn't seen Lin Yi following them, they ran to the entrance of the parking lot, only to hear the guard calling him and bro idiots. Tai Zhao was furious. I. The guard didn't know why Tai Zhao had hit him, but he saw that Tai Zhao had branded clothes all over him, and that he'd come from the parking lot as well. He was a VIP here, and he didn't want to piss him off. I wasn't calling you an idiot. You're still fucking lying? Tai Zhao slapped the guard again. I'm treating him to a meal, and you're calling me an idiot? You think I didn't hear that? Ah? The guard froze, not expecting someone to treat someone with a broken van. Jiang Wen walked over as well, frowning. What's wrong, Tai Zhao? This guard is calling us idiots. Does he want to die? Tai Zhao was very pissed off. He and Bro used to be the Songzhan 4 young masters back in the day, and all the security guards and managers of the entertainment venues knew them. Now, this guard didn't even know who he was, and was even insulting him. How could he not be pissed? Forget it. Jiang Wen waved his hand faintly. He was pissed as well, but he had business to attend today. He didn't have time to deal with this guard. Let's go, don't lower yourself to a small fry like him. The guard bowed and apologized profusely. He was very respectful to Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao, but when he raised his head, he glared venomously at Lin Yi. He didn't think that Lin Yi was a rich person. Looking at Lin Yi, he was just a poor student who drove a broken van. He didn't know how good he was at it. As a result, he didn't dare offend Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao. He wanted to vent his anger on Lin Yi. After thinking for a while, he went to puncture his tires. Anyway, the parking lot was so big, and he didn't know who did it. He could only blame it on his bad luck. With Lin Yi's keen senses, how could he not feel this little security guard's hatred? However, he didn't care and said lightly, You keep an eye on the car for me. If there's a problem with the car, I'll settle the score with you. The little security guard smiled bitterly, but he didn't expect Lin Yi to see through his thoughts. While he was annoyed, he could only accept his fate. Little did he know that Lin Yi didn't want to lower himself to his level. Otherwise, he would have been lying on the ground a long time ago. Jiang Wen brought Lin Yi to a private room on the 4th floor. The 4th floor was where the best private rooms were, and above that was the entertainment center. The room was very spacious, and one could see the night view of the fountain not far from the hotel through the floor-to-ceiling windows. It was a very good location, and normal people wouldn't be able to get a room like this. Brother Lin, please have a seat. Don't stand on ceremony. Jiang Wen, on the other hand, seemed to have gotten used to the night view. He put his phone on the table and sat down. It's been a while since I've been to this room. It's been 3 years, right? Yeah, and bro. Back in the day, we Songzhan young masters were so powerful. Even those little security guards are bullying us now. Tai Zhao said angrily. Haha, it's because Brother Lin's clothes are a little too simple, and the car's a little special. That's why that security guard looks down on you. Jiang Wen said with a smile, intentionally mocking Lin Yi. Lin Yi naturally understood that Jiang Wen was mocking him for being poor and not worthy of being with Meng Yao, but he didn't mind. The miss had sent him here today, and he wanted to teach these two a lesson for Yushu. Everything else was secondary. Plus, Lin Yi had even disguised himself as a beggar when he was on missions before. Why would he care about these looks? As a result, Lin Yi didn't mind the guard's words at all. Ha, that's true. Tai Zhao smiled, understanding what Jiang Wen was getting at. Lil bro Lin, you need to get Yao Yao to buy you some good clothes, or you'll lose face if you go out like this. I did, but I'm not wearing it. Lin Yi said with a smile, naturally understanding what the two were trying to say. Meng Yao did buy clothes for Lin Yi, but Lin Yi always wore his school uniform when he went to school. Tai Zhao, brother Lin, this is called keeping a low profile. What's the saying? Pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Jiang Wen explained with a smile. Yeah. Pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Keeping a low profile. Tai Zhao nodded. These two, naturally, were being sarcastic. As far as they were concerned, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to pretend to be a pig even if he wanted to. Lin Yi didn't explain. Laugh all you want, I'll make you cry later. Jiang Wen joked with Lin Yi a couple of times, feeling a bit better. But he didn't dare make it too obvious, afraid that Lin Yi would get angry and leave. He didn't wait for Lin Yi to speak and raised his hand to call for the waiter to bring out the dishes. The dishes had been ordered beforehand, and Jiang Wen had called the hotel to prepare them before he left Meng Yao's villa. So, after Jiang Wen gave the order to the waiters, the delicacies were placed on the table one after another. Jiang Wen secretly pressed the record button on his phone. He put his phone on the table intentionally, aiming the camera at Lin Yi to record the guy's embarrassing face. As far as Jiang Wen was concerned, Lin Yi probably hadn't eaten all these delicacies before. If he really ate like this, he'd record it and use it as a joke. Of course, this wasn't the main point. The show he'd arranged was the main point. Brother Lin, don't be so courteous. There's only 3 of us, we don't have that many rules. Let's eat. Jiang Wen raised his wine glass. Come, let me toast you. You saved my life last time, so I won't say any more thank yous words. It's nothing, and it's Yao Yao's orders, too. Lin Yi raised the glass in his hand and took a sip before putting it down and starting to eat. Chapter 355. Chapter 355. Finding an Opportunity. Wait a bit, let's eat first. I'm hungry. Lin Yi waved his hand dismissively. All right then. Let's eat first then. Jiang Wen thought that Lin Yi was probably really starved. School had just ended, and he hadn't had dinner yet. It wouldn't be too late to let him eat first. But Lin Yi's leisurely eating speed was driving Jiang Wen crazy. He'd wanted to record Lin Yi wolfing down his food and make it a laughing stock, but Lin Yi was eating very elegantly. He ate quite a lot, but it was a very elegant feeling. Jiang Wen had no choice but to give up on recording. Wasn't this just a waste of memory? What if he couldn't record Lin Yi when he was playing with a prostitute later? Lin Yi only took a sip of the red wine after he was done with his meal. He wiped his mouth. Not bad. The chefs at Starlight Hotel are really good. The food is really good. Of course this place wouldn't have become our base otherwise, Tai Zhao said proudly. Back in the day, us young masters of Songtan used to come here all the time. Brother Lin, we're full now. Should we start some activity? Jiang Wen, on the other hand, was all smiles as he looked at Lin Yi. He thought that if the kid didn't leave after eating and drinking, he'd be treating him to a meal for nothing. He didn't even get a single word out of the kid. Oh, that's fine, but wait, I need to go to the washroom. Lin Yi turned around to leave the room. His phone was vibrating. It was probably Meng Yao, or Yushu calling. Lin Yi didn't want to answer it in front of Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao. Isn't there a washroom in this room? Tai Zhao pointed at a small door in the room. I'm not used to sitting toilets. Lin Yi smiled. I ate too much, my stomach's a little uncomfortable. Haha, alright then, hurry up and come back soon. Tai Zhao smiled understandingly at Lin Yi's words. Some people were used to squatting and didn't like sitting down. It was normal. Lin Yi went to the washroom, and Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao decided to discuss their next step. They wanted Lin Yi to find a prostitute and record the whole process. It didn't matter if he was Meng Yao's boyfriend or not, as long as they gave the video to Pingzhan, he'd be done for. Lin Yi walked quickly to the washroom and picked up the phone. It was indeed Yushu. Shield bro, I'm asking you on behalf of Yao Yao, Yushu said seriously. Have you found Miss yet? Hee, not yet. Lin Yi smiled. I just finished eating. Sister Yao said you're not allowed to look for her. If you do, don't come back. Meng Yao's voice came from the other side just as Yushu finished. Shoo, what are you talking about? I didn't say that. Hee hee, shield bro, did you teach those two a lesson? Yushu giggled. I didn't find a chance. Let's wait and see. Linny couldn't just beat them up like that, could he? He needed a reason, and Linny didn't want Yushu's words to cause trouble for them. These two were clearly a level higher than Pin Liang and Zhou Ruoming. It was best to let them suffer in silence. Okay, then you have to teach them a lesson, Yushu said. I'm hanging up now, you have to hurry. Linny hung up and walked out of the washroom, thinking of a plan as he walked. Suddenly, he heard a familiar name coming from a private room. Zihua bro, what do you think of these two girls? They're the best in Starlight, the best in this place. I spent a lot of money to get them here. A flattering voice came from the private room. Although the voice was very humble, it was very loud, and it was obviously a little unscrupulous. Okay, not bad. A man's laughter came from the room. It was Zihua's voice that Linny saw the other day. Linny stopped in his footsteps. Zihua was eating here too. What a coincidence. He didn't know how Zihua felt after killing 2 golden class masters, but he still had the mood to come here and play with the best. Twins? What are your names? Zihua was evidently interested as he asked with a perverted voice. I'm Xue Xue, and she's Hua Hua. One of the twins said softly, the bolder one. Okay, Xue Xue, nice name. Zihua laughed loudly. Come, pour me a glass of wine. A smile formed on Lin Yi's lips as he made up his mind. He quickly walked back to his room. Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao had discussed this before. They had to find a girl for Lin Yi no matter what. Even if he didn't want one, they had to persuade him to find one. Otherwise, they'd come for nothing. So they decided that if Lin Yi didn't want one, they'd get him drunk and force him to find one. No matter what, he wouldn't be able to escape tonight. Lin Yi pushed the door open and entered the room. Jiang Wen waved at Lin Yi passionately. Bro Lin, come quick! I've already told the manager to find us some hot girls. Sure! Lin Yi pretended to be overjoyed and smiled. I'm full now, I can play with some girls. Good, forthright. Jiang Wen was overjoyed as well. He was worried that Lin Yi wouldn't look for one, but now that he'd asked for one, it was exactly what he wanted. The girls in this hotel are all pretty good, I'll make sure you enjoy yourself. Yeah, I've heard about that a long time ago. But bro, I'm a person with high taste. I don't like normal girls, Lin Yi said with a shake of his head. You know that the girls I usually interact with are all school beauties. I know that. Don't worry, I'll definitely find you the best. Jiang Wen thought to himself. He wasn't afraid of Lin Yi choosing, he was afraid that Lin Yi wouldn't look for one. As long as Lin Yi had the intention, he'd get the manager to find one for him. That's good. Lin Yi chuckled and sat down, looking very expectant. Jiang Wen gave Taizhou a look, and he left the room. Not long after, a man in his 30s came in with 5 pretty girls behind him. Mr. Yang, I didn't think that you'd come personally. It's my honor. Jiang Wen smiled. Mr. Yang was the general manager of the hotel, directly reporting to the big boss. He had the final say in everything. Other people might not know who Jiang Wen and Taizhou were, but he did. A few years ago, they were famous people in Songzhan. Even the big boss of the hotel had to give them face, let alone a manager like him. Chapter 356. Having a target. Masterin, see if these are to your liking, Mr. Yang said with a smile as he showed the girls behind him. Haha, Brother Lin is the guest today. Brother Lin, see if you like them first, Jiang Wen said with a nod to Lin Yi. Oh, can I pick 2? Lin Yi asked after one look. Of course. Taizhou nodded. He'd been afraid that Lin Yi wouldn't pick, but now he could even pick all of them, let alone 2. The more people there were, the messier it'd be. It'd be more convincing if he showed them to Chu Pingzhan. That's great. Lin Yi smiled. But, to be honest, none of them are to my liking. Jiang Wen and Taizhou frowned at Lin Yi's words. Wasn't Lin Yi being a little too picky? These 5 girls weren't top-tier beauties. but they'd still be top-tier beauties after putting on makeup. How could Lin Yi not be interested in any of them? Was his standards really too high, or was he doing this on purpose? But no matter what, Jiang Wen had no choice but to ask Mr. Yang to switch. Jiang Wen pretended to be angry. "Mr. Yang, what's wrong with you? Is it because I haven't been here for a few years that you're not giving me face anymore? Are you trying to fool us with these kinds of girls?" I wouldn't dare." Mr. Yang sweated. "I'll go switch them right now." These 5 girls really weren't the best of the best in the Starlight Hotel. Tai Zhao had told him to find some good ones to entertain the guests, and so Mr. Yang thought that these 5 were more than enough. He didn't think too much about it. Who would have thought that this customer was a picky one, and now he pissed off Master N as well. It wasn't worth it, and he quickly left the room with the 5 girls. Jiang Wen could tell from Mr. Yang's expression that these 5 weren't the best of the best. He couldn't help but look at Tai Zhao, puzzled. Why was this guy so unreliable? Since Lin Yi hung out with Meng Yao and Yushu all the time, his standards must be higher than the average person's. Would he even be interested in a normal girl? "I'm so sorry, Brother Lin. This Mr. Yang is really bad at handling things." Jiang Wen couldn't blame Tai Zhao, so he pushed the blame onto Mr. Yang. "Nothing. Let's wait and see." Lin Yi shook his head slightly, feeling amused. "Even if you brought a heaven immortal, I would still look down on you." After a while, the door of the private room was pushed open again. This time, Director Yang brought 3 girls who were obviously a grade higher than the previous 5 into the private room. "Master and Master Lin, how did it go?" Mr. Yang was full of confidence. He'd brought all of the hotel's top hostesses with him. If he still couldn't pick them out, then he'd have to say that Master Lin had bad taste. "Oh, let me see." Lin Yi raised his head calmly, sizing up the 3 girls Mr. Yang had brought. He had to admit that these girls were all top quality. Lin Yi sighed. Why did he have to go into this line of work? But Lin Yi wasn't a savior. He didn't want to care about things like this. Everyone had their own difficulties, and he couldn't possibly understand them one by one. He pretended to look at the 3 girls carefully, thinking that Lin Yi would definitely keep 1 or 2 or even 3 of them when Lin Yi spoke up. "Man, it still won't do. Mr. Yang, are you hiding something?" "Ah?" Mr. Yang paused, a little unhappy. "Hiding something? What, Master Lin doesn't like any of them?" At this point, even Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao thought that Lin Yi was being too picky. Was this guy just going through the motions to brush them off? Maybe he didn't even want to look. Jiang Wen had his suspicions, but he couldn't say it already. What if Lin Yi was really that picky? "Brother Lin, don't tell me that you don't like any of them?" Tai Zhao's words were a little forceful after all. Even he was a little moved by these 3 girls. But Lin Yi didn't like any of them? Ahem. "All right, I'll get straight to the point then. Mr. Yang, I heard that Starlight has 2 top hostesses, a pair of twins." Lin Yi pretended to be unhappy. "I've heard so much about them. It's not just a rumor, is it?" Lin Yi's words surprised Mr. Yang, as well as Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao. What surprised Mr. Yang was that Lin Yi wasn't being picky at all, but that he already had a target in mind. Perhaps it was because he wanted to save face, but he didn't say it out loud. Instead, he was hinting at Mr. Yang through his dissatisfaction, asking him to change to someone better. Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao, on the other hand, hadn't been here for years, and they didn't know who the top hostesses were anymore. So when they heard Lin Yi say these 2 names, they thought to themselves that this kid was an expert. What made Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao the happiest was that Lin Yi wasn't messing with them on purpose. He already had a target in mind, and perhaps he was too embarrassed to say it out loud before, but now that Tai Zhao had forced him to say it. But that wasn't a problem. As long as Lin Yi said the name, everything would be fine. "Mr. Yang, that Xue and Hua Hua, aren't they the top hostesses here?" Jiang Wen looked at Mr. Yang, his tone neutral. He was a little annoyed. Even if he hadn't been here for years, he was still one of the 4 young masters of Songzhan. He was a famous young master in Songzhan. This Mr. Yang wasn't giving him face at all. He'd already asked him to change the hostesses, and he was still hiding something. Wasn't he looking down on him? Mr. Yang's heart tightened at Jiang Wen's anger. He knew that Jiang Wen had misunderstood. He quickly explained. Master, please don't be angry. Xue and Hua are the top hostesses here, but they've already been picked up by other customers for a large sum of money. Humph, tell them to come over, I'll pay them even more. It's just money, isn't it? I've got plenty of it. Jiang Wen panicked. Lin Yi finally had a target, and now they'd been picked by someone else? How could he let that happen? That's against the rules, isn't it? Mr. Yang sighed. The current Songzhan wasn't the fourth young master's world anymore. Your families all have their own backgrounds, but there's someone here who's no weaker than you all. He's the one who picked Xue and Hua tonight. Can I go get them back? And bro, let's just forget about it. Since Mr. Yang's in such a difficult position, let's talk about it another day, Lin Yi said, pretending to be a nice guy. Chapter 357. Chapter 357. The fox exploiting the tiger's might. Jiang Wen knew that tonight was a good opportunity for him to take down Lin Yi. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he didn't know when he'd get it after today. He couldn't wait. Since Lin Yi had a target in mind, he'd have to make sure he got what he wanted. Brother Lin, don't worry, leave this to me. I have some face here in Songzhan, Jiang Wen said faintly as he looked at Mr. Yang. Mr. Yang, are you not going to give me face anymore? Master, it's not that I don't want to, it's just that I can't call them back from their rooms. Mr. Yang smiled bitterly. They're not easy to mess with, oh? So you're saying that we're easy to mess with? Tai Zhao raged, really wanting to slap this guy in the face. He and Bro were Songshan's 4 young masters. Mr. Yang smiled bitterly. He couldn't afford to piss off a single one of them. And bro, it looks like your face isn't that useful anymore. Why don't we just let it go? I don't want things to get out of hand, Lin Yi said weakly as he looked at Jiang Wen. It's fine. Jiang Wen stood up from Lin Yi's words. You don't have to do that, just tell me which room they're in, I'll go find them myself. In Songzhan, other than my bro Chen, there's no one who dares fight me for a woman. They're in room 418, Mr. Yang said. Master, I'll be leaving first then, please don't tell anyone that I said that, go. Jiang Wen waved his hand impatiently, cursing the coward in his mind. He turned to Tai Zhao. Let's go, we'll fight and bro for a woman. Heh, alright. Tai Zhao stood up as well, itching to go. In the past few years, they had done plenty of such tyrannical things, so they didn't care at all and weren't afraid of getting into trouble. Most people would take the initiative to keep the peace after hearing the name of the 4 young masters of Mount Songzhan. No one would argue with them and cause trouble. Brother Lin, are you coming? Jiang Wen looked at Lin Yi, who was sitting on the chair. You're a man, you need to be hot-blooded. Even if you don't do anything, you should at least watch from the side. Then, I'll go take a look. Lin Yi stood up excitedly. Actually, I'm looking forward to such a hot-blooded scene. It's just that I didn't dare to before. Ha, no problem, just watch. Tai Zhao laughed. Watch how the 4 young masters of Songzhan step on people. Tai Zhao put on a righteous face as well. That was the only way to get Lin Yi to let his guard down, and they'd be able to take pictures of him later. Alright, then I'll also borrow the tiger's might for once. Lin Yi stood up and took 2 steps forward. Then, he turned around and picked up a bottle of red wine from the table. I need to bring a weapon to protect myself. Ha, these things are all trash if you follow us. Tai Zhao curled his lips. The name of the 4 young masters of Songzhan was much more useful than a bottle of wine. Lin Yi walked in front like a tiger, opening up a path. Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao, on the other hand, were chuckling inwardly at the guys. Thought he'd gone crazy thinking about the twins, otherwise he wouldn't be this excited. He stopped in front of room 418, waiting for Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao to walk over before kicking the door open. His voice grew shrill with excitement. People inside, listen up. If you know what's good for you, send Xue and Hua out to our young master right now. Otherwise, you'll be in for it. With that, he threw the bottle of wine in with a bang, hitting Tsihua's face and causing his nose to bleed. In actuality, Linny had made his voice sharper on purpose. He didn't want Sihua to recognize his voice. After throwing the bottle, Linny quickly hid behind Jiang Wen and Taizao. Jiang Wen and Taizao, on the other hand, didn't mind Lin Yi's actions at all. They thought that he was just trying to act cool, but was also a coward, using their power to intimidate others. Jiang Wen and Taizao walked into the room, and with Lin Yi leading the way, Jiang Wen pointed at the twins. "I'm taking these two girls with me tonight. You guys don't mind, do you?" Jiang Wen used to say this a couple of years ago, and it was easy for him to say it now. He looked at Xue and Hua Hua, and found them to be as pretty and sweet as the three girls Mr. Yang had brought. No wonder Lin Yi wanted them so much. Even Jiang Wen himself was moved. If it weren't for the fact that he had to take pictures of Lin Yi, he would have taken them home himself. Sihua was stunned by the bottle of wine that Lin Yi had thrown at him. Who dared hit him in Songzhan? Did they have a death wish? The voice sounded familiar, but Sihua didn't have time to think about it. He raised his head to look at the door, and saw Jiang Wen and Taizao walking in. Sihua thought that they were the ones who threw the bottle. He was furious. How could there be people who didn't know what was good for them? "Beat them to death! Beat them to death!" Sihua held his bleeding nose as he pointed at Jiang Wen and Taizao. "Beat them until they don't even recognize each other." The two golden class masters beside him had been killed by Lin Yi, but Sihua still had other fighters around him. They weren't golden class yet, but they were more than enough to beat up two young masters who didn't know any kung fu. The two bodyguards beside Sihua heard the order, pouncing over like hungry wolves, each of them grabbing one of the bodyguards and starting the fight without a word. Jiang Wen and Taizao were stupefied. They were used to stepping on people, never thinking about the consequences. The moment they said their names, the only thing the other party would think of was to let things go. But today, the people in the room didn't even ask before starting the fight. Were they idiots? Didn't they know the rules? Aren't you afraid of getting into trouble and getting yourself into trouble? They were only thinking about themselves. They didn't think that this was all caused by Lin Yi. If it weren't for Lin Yi smashing a bottle of wine on Sihua's face, he wouldn't have ordered his bodyguards to start the fight. Usually, Jiang Wen and Taizao would bring a strong follower with them when they came out. For example, the feminine man from the other day was Taizao's fighter, and he had no problem fighting 1 against 3. But today, he was treating Lin Yi to a meal, and so Jiang Wen didn't bring any irrelevant people. Only when the fight was about to start did he realize that there was no one on his side who could fight. Chapter 358. Wasn't this a little too much? Taizao didn't even get a chance to say anything before another bodyguard punched him to the ground. Cries and screams filled the room. People who didn't know what was going on would think that pigs were being slaughtered inside the room. Lin Yi curled his lips. Trying to mess with me? You too can enjoy the feeling of being screwed over yourself by. He used his phone to record the two's miserable state for a while before leaving room 418 silently. He took the elevator downstairs and was out of the hotel in no time at all. Lin Yi didn't drink much at all, just 2 sips of red wine. Lin Yi wouldn't get drunk even if he drank a lot, so he got in the car and drove back to the villa. Jiang Wen and Taizao might be the Songzhan young masters, but they'd probably have to swallow their pride if they knew that it was Sihua who'd beaten them up. They wouldn't be able to get back at him. Yushu called him again on the way home, and Lin Yi picked it up with a smile. What's up? Is there something else? Yao Yao asked me to check if you did anything bad again. Yushu giggled. Haha, nothing, I'm going back soon. Lin Yi smiled. The mist was cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. She did care about him a lot. Shoo, don't say stuff like that, I'm just worried that he'll get filmed and sent to me. Meng Yao humphed, not admitting what she was thinking. Hee, Yao Yao's angry now. Yushu stuck her tongue out. Shield bro, did you do anything to them? Yup, I'll tell you guys when I get back. Lin Yi found it hilarious the more he thought about Jiang Wen and Taizao. Those two were really unlucky. He didn't know who was stronger, Jiang Wen and Taizao's power. On the 4th floor of the Bright Star Hotel, in room 418, there was a one-sided brawl going on. 2 bodyguards were kicking and punching Tai Zhao and Jiang Wen, who'd already turned into pig heads. "You dare hit me? Do you know who I am?" Jiang Wen yelled at the top of his lungs. He took the opportunity when the bodyguard was switching hands. "I don't care who you are. Since you dare to come looking for trouble today, don't even think of leaving here standing." Jiaoneng replied with a cold smile as he carefully wiped the blood off Zihua's face. "Zihua bro, are you alright? Do you want to go to the hospital?" "I'm fine," Zihua said with a wave of his hands. A small injury like this wasn't enough to affect him at all. It was just a little scary, and he didn't feel like he was losing face at all. He was a big shot in the underworld, and now his nose was bleeding from a slap. It was quite embarrassing. "I'm Jiang Wen. Songzhan young master Jiang Wen. How dare you hit me?" Jiang Wen continued yelling while he still had the chance to speak. He was afraid that the bodyguard would land another punch on his mouth and turn him into a mute. "Wait!" Zihua paused after hearing Jiang Wen's words. He quickly waved his hand, signaling the bodyguards to stop fighting. "What did you say? Who are you?" "I'm the third of the Songzhan young masters, Su Tai Zhao. He's Jiang Wen Broen." Tai Zhao forced himself up from the ground and pointed a finger at Zihua. "What now? Scared now?" "Not really, but there seems to be some kind of misunderstanding here." Zihua stood up and walked up to the man. "Are you really Jiang Wen?" "Of course." Jiang Wen wiped the blood off his face dark. "Do you want to see my ID?" "No need. I'll believe you if you say so. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Zihua." Zihua waved his hand and had the bodyguards help Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao up. "I don't give a f***ck who you are. Zihua, double kick, great cannon, whatever. How dare you hit me? You'll have your house confiscated tomorrow." Tai Zhao waved his claws and fangs. "Tai Zhao, don't make a fuss." Jiang Wen frowned at the name and raised his head to look at Zihua. As expected, the guy looked very similar to the Zihua he'd seen in the documents, except that his nose was broken now. "You're Zihua bro?" "Yes, I'm Zihua." Zihua nodded. "Master Wen, is there a misunderstanding? You asked me to meet you at the nightclub on the 5th floor at 9. Why'd you come to my room early?" I invited a friend here for dinner. He said he's interested in these 2 girls, huh? Where's he?" Jiang Wen turned around, but Lin Yi was nowhere to be seen. What a huge misunderstanding. The owner of this room was actually Zihua. This beating would have been for nothing. Jiang Wen had been planning to get his men here as soon as he walked out of this room. He wouldn't let the people in this room have it easy. Getting their kidneys removed would be too easy for them. But now, he could only swallow his anger. "Invited a friend for dinner?" Zihua frowned. "Who was the one who threw the bottle in here?" "It's that friend of mine." Jiang Wen suddenly called out to the hallway. "Lin Yi? Lin Yi? Lin Yi? The friend you invited is called Lin Yi?" Zihua's pupils contracted. "You're saying that Lin Yi was the one who threw the bottle in here? What? You know Lin Yi, Zihua bro?" Jiang Wen could tell from Zihua's tone that he knew Lin Yi. "I do. How could I not know him?" Zihua smiled coldly. "Not only do I know him, he's my enemy. Master Wen, I'm sure that you've been tricked by that Lin Yi." Jiang Wen's face darkened as he fell into deep thought after hearing Zihua's words. He wasn't an idiot. He connected the dots and came to a conclusion immediately. Lin Yi had done this on purpose. He probably knew that Zihua was in this room, and knew that Xue and Hua Hua were here as well. That was why he'd purposely picked these 2, using Tai Zhao and Jiang Wen as cannon fodder to send them to Zihua's room. In the end, a bottle had escalated the conflict, and Lin Yi was gone when the 2 of them went in stupidly. Chapter 359. Chapter 359. Getting beaten up for nothing. What Lin Yi didn't know was that Jiang Wen and Zihua actually knew each other, and had even arranged to meet up at night. According to Lin Yi, even if Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao weren't killed, they'd be crippled by Zihua's men. Zihua, on the other hand, wasn't a man who wouldn't react when his nose was bleeding. "Master, I can only apologize for what happened earlier. I hope you don't mind, but I've become like this as well, Sihua said with a shrug as he pointed at his face. The power behind Sihua wasn't weak, but Jiang Wen's house wasn't weak either. Add Tai Zhao's house to the mix, there was even less of a need for Sihua to start a feud. The two of them didn't even have a grudge against each other, and were even working together. It was all that bastard Lin Yi's fault. It's fine. Jiang Wen waved his hand. He knew that he couldn't blame Sihua for what happened today. The only person to blame was Lin Yi. That bastard was simply too evil. Tai Zhao, on the other hand, was a little indignant. Lin Yi was the one who started this. But he couldn't just beat someone up like that, could he? He'd never heard of the name Sihua, after all. Who the hell knew who he was? But seeing that Jiang Wen was letting it go, he didn't have anything else to say. He could only sit on the side angrily. The good thing was that the beating wasn't too heavy, just that his face looked like a pig's head. Shua, hua, go accompany young Master Su to calm his anger. Sihua could see through Tai Zhao's resentment. He waved at the twins, gesturing for them to keep Tai Zhao company. Tai Zhao's face was swollen, but Shua and Hua weren't stupids. They knew that this person was someone with a high social status, someone who was on the same level as Sihua. Plus, he was a pig now, but he'd been a handsome guy when he first came in. It wouldn't be a loss to keep him company. Master Su. Tai Zhao had been holding a grudge at first, but now that Sihua had given him these two headliners, that grudge vanished without a trace. He wasn't the kind of person who was shrewd. The purpose of coming to the private room this time was to snatch the woman. Now that he had achieved his goal, he had his face. Naturally, Tai Zhao didn't say anything else about Sihua's thoughtfulness and respect. Happily, he brought the two girls into the lounge. Sihua smiled faintly. Naturally, he knew what Tai Zhao was thinking, but he didn't care about him at all. The only person he cared about was Jiang Wen, the person who could bring him benefits. Young Master, forgive me for being blunt, but why are you treating Lin Yi to a meal? Are you friends with him? Sihua had to figure out the relationship between Jiang Wen and Lin Yi first. He knew that Jiang Wen was pissed off after Lin Yi set him up, but that was just on the surface. Who knew if there was a deeper connection between the two? If Jiang Wen and Lin Yi were really friends, then this cooperation wouldn't be able to go on. Friends? Jiang Wen smiled coldly. More like love rivals. Oh? Sihua narrowed his eyes. He'd gotten a useful piece of information. I was wondering why he'd set you up. I've underestimated the kid's intellect. It seems like he knew that I had bad intentions towards him all along, so he set me up after eating me. Jiang Wen said angrily. Sihua bro, you and Lin Yi is Mengyao's bodyguard. We wanted to kidnap Mengyao to achieve our goals, but Lin Yi ruined our plan. Sihua said nonchalantly. Naturally, he wouldn't reveal something as shameful as losing two golden class masters, and now that the plan had failed, Gubang had lost the ability to deal with Pingzhan. Sihua couldn't be bothered with Mengyao, but Lin Yi, on the other hand, was something he couldn't let go of. Oh? Is Lin Yi really Mengyao's bodyguard? Jiang Wen paused. He'd had his suspicions before, but if Lin Yi really was Mengyao's bodyguard, then he still had a chance. I thought that he had some sort of relationship with Mengyao before, but I realized that he was closer to that Yushu. Sihua was talking about the theme park incident. Lin Yi risked his life to jump into the sea with Yushu, and that made Sihua suspicious. Yushu? Ha, that's great! Jiang Wen lost his composure a little after hearing Sihua's words. But he couldn't be blamed for that. He'd been planning to cause trouble for Lin Yi because he'd heard that Lin Yi was Mengyao's boyfriend. Now that he was sure that Lin Yi wasn't, Jiang Wen felt quite satisfied. What's wrong, Master? The girl you're in love with isn't Mengyao, is it? Sihua seemed to have noticed something. I'm sorry, Sihua bro, but Yao and I are childhood friends. We grew up together. Jiang Wen nodded. I saw Lin Yi with Mengyao when I came back to China, so I brought him out to see what's going on. That kid isn't simple. Even if he's just a bodyguard, you still have to be careful of him, Sihua reminded. He didn't mind using this opportunity to drive a wedge between Jiang Wen and Lin Yi into the fray. I will. Jiang Wen nodded. Sihua bro, you guys want to go after Meng Yao. It's all in the past, and that plan has been terminated. Don't worry. Sihua smiled. Even if it wasn't terminated, I wouldn't do anything for Master An's sake. Thank you, Sihua bro. Jiang Wen was quite satisfied with Sihua's attitude. The two had some conflict at first, but that was all because of Lin Yi. Now that things were out in the open, Jiang Wen still wanted to work with Sihua. Master An, we don't get to know each other without a fight. We're both straightforward people, so just say what you want. Sihua smiled as he poured Jiang Wen a glass of red wine. Because of the misunderstanding, the two skipped the pleasantries and probing each other's secrets, and went straight to the point. Jiang Wen glanced at the private room Taizo was in there, and then at Sihua's bodyguards. He wanted to say something, but he didn't. Sihua smiled, naturally understanding what Jiang Wen meant. He waved his hand at his bodyguards. You guys leave first. Yes. The bodyguards didn't say anything and left the private room. After closing the door tightly, they stood guard at the door of the private room. Chapter 360. Kneeling on the CPU. Hello, Mr. Su, your name's pretty cute. Jiang Wen sweated a little at the name. It was a pretty cool name. Haha. Jianeng smiled. I'm from the same family as that Master Su inside. Don't worry, Master An, this room's soundproof. We can't hear anything from inside, right? Jiang Wen nodded. Sihua bro, I'm sure you know what kind of business my family does. My big brother used to be in charge here in Songtan, and I don't care what he does, but I've heard a lot about you, Sihua bro. You're the boss of Songshan's underground forces. That's why I'm here to pay you a visit. No matter what, Jiang Wen's words made Sihua feel good. Naturally, Sihua knew what kind of business Jiang Wen's family was in, after all, selling human organs. Jiang Wen's big brother, Njianda, hadn't visited Sihua when he was here. He didn't think much of Sihua because he had a golden class mid-phase as his underling. But Njianda's business back then was the kind where money was exchanged for goods. It was illegal, but it didn't have anything to do with the underground forces. Sihua didn't want to get into an enemy's business because of that. After all, a golden class mid-phase master wasn't to be underestimated. Sihua had a stronger master backing him up, but there was no need for the two to fight to the death. Even if he took care of Njianda, Sihua wouldn't be able to dip his fingers into his business, since he'd never been in the business before. He didn't have any customers, and he didn't have any channels to sell his organs. But even so, Sihua was still a little displeased. After all, doing illegal business in Songtan without paying a visit to him was a bit shameful. Even if he didn't give any money, shouldn't he at least put on a feast? And so, Sihua was quite pleased that Jiang Wen had taken the initiative to pay a visit. Haha, Master Wen, I'm glad that you're thinking like that. Don't worry, there's no one I can't take care of in Songtan. If you need anything in the future, just say the word, Sihua said boldly. However, he was obviously bragging. At the very least, he didn't manage to deal with Lin Yi. Not only that, but he also lost 2 golden class masters. This was a huge loss. No. Sihua bro, I'm not here to visit you this time. I'm here to talk about cooperation. Jiang Wen waved his hand with a smile. Cooperate? Sihua paused. What was there to cooperate with this guy? Sihua bro, you know that fewer and fewer people are willing to sell their kidneys these days. People aren't stupid anymore. My brother used to lie to people, saying that losing a kidney wouldn't affect them at all. But the truth is, people who have their kidneys removed will have their bodies deteriorate. No one is falling for that anymore, Jiang Wen said helplessly. That's why I'm preparing to make a move on the homeless and beggars. Of course I have to go through you, Sihua bro. Sihua nodded. This Jiang Wen was quite the attention. He wouldn't be able to interfere if it was just selling organs, but kidnapping people on his turf without Sihua's permission was a little disrespectful to him. Sihua nodded, thinking that Jiang Wen wasn't a big deal at all. That's a good thought. No one would notice if the homeless and beggars went missing. Sihua nodded. What do you want me to do? Help you catch them, Or help you solve the problem? Haha, it'd be best if you could help me catch them, but we'll do it ourselves. Jiang Wen nodded. Of course, I'll give you a certain amount of profit every month, Sihua bro. You won't be doing this for free. Okay. Sihua nodded, satisfied. Organ trading was a very profitable business, and it would be a good idea if Jiang Wen could give him a portion of the profit. Of course, Sihua bro, if you have someone who died not too long ago, you can send it to me as well, Jiang Wen said. We'll share the profit with you as well. No problem. It's a deal. Sihua nodded. Sihua wouldn't have agreed so easily if it were someone else, but he knew about Jiang Wen's family. His big brother had been doing organ trading for a few years now, and it had always been very secretive. There shouldn't be any risk in working with Jiang Wen. They'd already formed a set of procedures, and it wouldn't be exposed easily. Sihua bro, you're such a straightforward person. Jiang Wen nodded with a smile as he raised the wine in his hand. His face was swollen and bruised, but he was still very happy that he'd made a deal. With Sihua's support, his business would definitely grow. Plus, he'd learned something important today. Lin Yi wasn't Ming Yao's boyfriend, but her bodyguard. Things would be easier if that was the case, but it was time to change his plan of dealing with Lin Yi. If he really was a bodyguard, it would be a good idea to rope him in, but if he didn't, then he'd have no choice but to do the same. Meng Yao and Yushu sat on the sofa, watching TV. Meng Yao waited for Yushu to finish talking with Lin Yi before asking, Shu, is he coming back already? Yeah, Yao, Shield Bro said he's on his way back. Yushu nodded. He said he wasn't lying, and he didn't go to the miss. Humph, you can trust a man's words? Meng Yao humphed. Shu, you trust people too easily. Don't get tricked by Lin Yi. My dad said that he didn't make Mommy run away because of him, but what's the truth? I saw the note Mommy left behind, and it said that Daddy made her run away because of him. Oh. Then what should we do? We'll wait for Shield Bro to come back and ask him. Yushu wondered if Shield Bro would be able to resist temptation. I heard that the only way to get a man to tell the truth is to make him kneel on the CPU. Yao, should we try that too? Meng Yao sweated profusely. Kneel on the CPU? Shu, your method is outdated. I heard that nowadays people kneel on the TV remote, and they beat you up every time you change the channel. The new CPU doesn't have pins anymore, so it's useless for punishment. It's fine, Yao. We can turn on the computer and remove the fan, and make Shield Bro kneel on it. Yushu waved her fist. Are you trying to burn him to death? Meng Yao was speechless. The CPU would burn to death without a fan. Chapter 361. Chapter 361. Lin Yi's birthday gift. Oh, it's nothing. We were talking about burning a cockroach to death. Yushu still wanted to hear how Lin Yi had taught Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao a lesson. She wouldn't dare offend Lin Yi. She changed her words immediately. What a bastard! All you've got is your mouth. Kneel to the CPU. Who knows who'll be kneeling in the future? Meng Yao glared at Yushu angrily when she saw how Yushu was denying everything without any sense of loyalty. Hee. Yushu pretended like she didn't hear anything as she stood up from the sofa with a giggle. She ran over to Lin Yi. Shield Bro, how did you teach Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao a lesson? Tell me. Meng Yao was annoyed at Yushu's actions, but she couldn't help but widen her eyes at Lin Yi's question. She looked at Lin Yi with widened eyes. Haha, see for yourselves, Lin Yi said as he handed the phone to Yushu. When Jiang Wen was recording with his phone, Lin Yi turned on his phone as well. It was just that he kept the phone in his pocket at the beginning, so he could only hear their voices, not see the images. Bro Lin, come quick! I've already told the manager to get us some hot girls. Alright. Now that we're full, we can play with some girls. Lin Yi's phone sounded, and Meng Yao heard everything clearly. She couldn't help but glare at Lin Yi. Shu, look, I told you this guy wasn't being honest. Looks like we'll have to show this recording to Tang Yin tomorrow. Let her see what kind of person Lin Yi is. Yushu looked at Lin Yi confused. Shield Bro, Are you that kind of person? We'll know if we keep watching. Lin Yi shrugged, not explaining. Yushu and Meng Yao continued listening to Lin Yi's phone, and Meng Yao frowned again when Lin Yi asked for snow and flour. Lin Yi, what else do you know about snow and flour? Lin Yi didn't say anything, gesturing for her to keep watching. Meng Yao thought that Lin Yi was feeling guilty when he didn't reply. She humphed and went back to looking at the phone. Meng Yao heard Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao asking for the girls, and Lin Yi's cowardice. Meng Yao knew that Lin Yi was starting to pull something. He was a fearless man, why would he be afraid of trouble? Meng Yao and Yushu understood Lin Yi's plan the moment they heard him smash a bottle into the room. The people in that room weren't easy to deal with. Lin Yi was using someone else's hand to deal with Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao. As expected, the people in the room were pissed off, and started kicking and punching Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao. They could see the video now, taken by Lin Yi. Haha! Shield bro, you're amazing! You killed people without a trace! Yushu looked at the video of Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao getting beaten up, quite pleased. These two really shot themselves in the foot, trying to find a girl for you, but they got beaten up instead. Tricks like this can only fool these two idiots. Meng Yao humphed, not giving Lin Yi any compliments. Who was the one who suspected Lin Yi just now? Haha, I can't take it anymore, I'm dying of laughter. These two are really stupid. Yushu couldn't stop laughing. Shield bro, give me a copy later, I'll watch it again when I'm free. Alright. Lin Yi nodded. After returning to his room, he received a call from Kang Xiaobo. The guy was worried about his second grandpa's birthday present this weekend. Boss, what do you think I should give him? I'm bringing Fun and you with me this time, after all, and it'd be embarrassing if I gave him something too cheap. Ha! Your second grandpa, Dr. Kang, doesn't really need anything. His family won't be interested in anything you give him. Lin Yi smiled. It depends on their attitude towards your family. According to what you said, the relationship between your two families only looks like it's okay on the surface. But if it's not, they'll think that you're poor if the gifts you give them are too cheap, and if the gifts you give them are too expensive, they'll think that you're trying to act rich. Man, you're right. Kang Xiaobo listened to Lin Yi's words and nodded. If it were Kang Mingming, my second grandpa would have laughed for half a day even if he gave me a calligraphy he wrote. He's his grandson after all, and alright, Xiaobo, since you're calling me boss, I'll take care of this for you. I'll prepare a special gift for him, but it's up to him whether he believes it or not, Lin Yi said after some hesitation. Oh? Boss, do you have something good? Kang Xiaobo listened to Lin Yi's words and was overjoyed. Boss, do you have a gift that can make us proud? Yes, I'm preparing something for you, but I'm afraid they won't believe it, Lin Yi said. It's fine if they don't believe me, it doesn't matter, as long as the thought is there. Kang Xiaobo nodded. Boss, no matter what, I believe you. After hanging up, Lin Yi's lips curved into a smile. Dr. Kang. When his miracle Dr. Guan brand gets bigger in the future, there's no guarantee that they won't become enemies. In order to prevent him from having unrealistic thoughts, he'll use this birthday banquet to suppress him. After Lin Yi performed acupuncture on Jinhu last time, he had an idea, to make a bone-cleansing pill. Of course, it wasn't a real bone-cleansing pill. A real bone-cleansing pill required a large amount of expensive herbs. Not only was the cost frighteningly high, but the production of those herbs also meant that this pill couldn't be mass-produced. This was a pill that old Lin had given to Lin Yi to train his body when he was young. It could expel impurities from the body and cleanse the bones and marrow. But naturally, Lin Yi wouldn't take something like this out. What he wanted to make was just a substitute. It could only expel the impurities and toxins from the body that hadn't been cleansed by metabolism. It couldn't truly change the body's constitution. But even so, it could extend one's lifespan by a few years or even 10 years. Of course, that was under the condition that there weren't any major problems with the body. This thing wasn't an elixir of immortality, it was just a detoxification drug. Even if it was eaten, it wouldn't cure the illness. Lin Yi's acupuncture on Jinhu had already achieved a similar effect. This could be replaced by traditional Chinese medicine. This time, when Lin Yi attended Kong Xiaobo's second grandfather's birthday banquet, he was prepared to bring out a bone-cleansing pill like this. However, Lin Yi renamed it the Pill of Life Extension and Toxin Cleansing. Chapter 362. Boss has a way, of course. Even if this thing could be mass-produced, Lin Yi didn't want to do it. He didn't want to leak the recipe either. Rare things were more valuable. People would only crazily chase after it when it was unique. Plus, once this thing was released, it would definitely attract the attention of various forces. Lin Yi didn't want to stand in the limelight just yet. He only took out a few pills. He didn't want to say that he made it himself. He just wanted to release some from time to time. This way, he could keep a low profile. Originally, Lin Yi wanted to make a few pills and give them to the celebrities when Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company opened. He wanted to make Miracle Dr. Guan's name known. But it wasn't a bad idea to give one to Dr. Kong as a birthday gift. If he believed it, then his words would be more convincing. If he didn't believe it, then he could only pretend that he wasn't fated to enjoy such a good thing. Lin Yi originally wanted to wait for Kong Xiaobo's second grandpa's birthday celebration to make the pill. But because of this phone call, Lin Yi had to prepare in advance. Luckily, he still had time. On Saturday afternoon, Kong Xiaobo called. Lin Yi drove to Ningshi Road Station to pick up Kong Xiaobo. Tang Yun's father, Tang Juqing, was going to have surgery on Monday. Tang Yun had to stay in the hospital with her mother, so she was at the hospital. Lin Yi wanted to pick up Tang Yun after picking up Kong Xiaobo. As for Xiaofan, Kong Xiaobo had already discussed it with his parents. Lin Yi was his good brother, Tang Yun was Lin Yi's girlfriend, and Xiaofan was Tang Yun's best friend. Kong Xiaobo's parents didn't suspect anything. Instead, they thought that it was a good sign that Kong Xiaobo could bring a classmate. After all, Kong Xiaobo wasn't willing to go to his second grandpa's house in the past. The people on the other side invited him warmly, but Xiaobo continued to ignore them. Kong Xiaobo's parents didn't know that Kong Mingming had been mocking Kong Xiaobo in private. He was only pretending to be normal. The car stopped at Ningshi Road Station. Kong Xiaobo opened the door and got in. "Boss, let's go pick up Xiaofan first." "She's at home." Lin Yi nodded. Xiaofan lived in the slums, so Lin Yi was familiar with the place. "Man, Fan doesn't really want to go. She said she'd go, but now she's backing out." Xiaobo sighed after getting in the car. "I tried to talk her out of it, and she agreed reluctantly. Who knows if she'll regret it later? That's normal. After all, going to see Kong Xiaoming is an eternal pain in her heart. Although she was mentally prepared for it, it's understandable that she would retreat when it comes to it," Lin Yi said. "After all, Kong Mingming hurt her. Although you want to completely forget Kong Mingming in this way, you have to consider Xiaofan's opinion. I understand, too. That's why I'll always be by her side. I won't let Kong Mingming bully her." Kong Xiaobo clenched his fist. "I'll protect her from harm." "I believe you." Lin Yi nodded, but even if Kong Xiaobo didn't say it, he would still accompany Kong Xiaobo and not let anyone bully him and Xiaofan. Lin Yi parked the car in front of Xiaofan's house. Kong Xiaobo went upstairs to pick Xiaofan up. Lin Yi sat in the car and called Tang Yun. "Hello." The call was picked up very quickly, and Tang Yun's voice came from the other side. "Lin Yi, are you here?" "My dad is asleep. I can't speak loudly." "Not yet." "I accompanied Xiaobo to pick up Xiaofan," Lin Yi said. "I'm downstairs. I'll pick you up later." "And?" Tang Yun replied softly. Before she could say anything, Lin Yi heard Mrs. Tang's voice from the other side of the phone. "Yun, is that Xiaolin? Go and play. I don't need you here. Your dad hasn't undergone surgery yet. He doesn't need you to take care of him." Then, it was Tang Yun's embarrassed and helpless voice. All right. Mom, I understand. You don't have to worry. I'll leave in a while, okay, haha." Lin Yi chuckled before hanging up. Kong Xiaobo supported Xiaofan as they limped down. Xiaofan had a limp. It was obvious when she walked. She usually sat in a wheelchair at home. However, it wasn't suitable for her to sit in a wheelchair today. I said I'd carry you down, but you didn't agree. Look, you almost fell. Kang Xiaobo saw Xiaofan stumble and almost fall at the door. He subconsciously helped her up. Xiaofan's outfit today was very fashionable and pure. She wore a candy t-shirt and a pair of jeans. Her hair was meticulously styled. She even had light makeup on her face. After her recuperation in the hospital, she looked completely different from her sickly appearance. She also wore a pair of exquisite sunglasses. She gave off a youthful and beautiful vibe. It was similar to Tang Yun's style. No wonder they were best friends. One could imagine that Xiaofan had many pursuers in the past. She wasn't inferior to Tang Yun. However, fate was unfair. It made her drop out of school and stay at home. If it wasn't for Kang Xiaobo, it would be hard for Xiaofan to walk out of her house. Although Xiaofan's heart wasn't completely open, she was much more cheerful than before. If it wasn't for her leg, Xiaofan would be even more radiant. Xiaofan is very beautiful today. Lin Yi comforted her. A girl like Fan was extremely lacking in confidence right now, and he needed to keep encouraging her. Is that so? Xiaofan lowered her head in surprise. I was afraid that Xiaobo would feel embarrassed. How could that be? It's very honorable for me to bring you out, Kang Xiaobo said. How could it be embarrassing to have such a beautiful companion? But my leg. Xiaofan knew that Kang Xiaobo was comforting her. At least to his parents, he didn't dare to tell the truth. Don't worry. Boss said he will cure you. He has a way, Kang Xiaobo said and gave Lin Yi a look. Isn't that right, boss? Kang Xiaobo wanted Lin Yi to comfort Xiaofan. Even if he couldn't cure Xiaofan's leg now, he hoped that Lin Yi could give her confidence. After all, Xiaofan knew that Lin Yi knew medical skills. Xiaobo, you don't have to comfort me. The doctors in the hospital said that there's no hope. Xiaofan sighed. Chapter 363. Keep the good stuff for yourself. Lin Yi's answer was very standard, and he didn't tell Fan that he could definitely cure it, only saying that it was possible. But the more it was like that, the happier Fan was. If Lin Yi said that he could cure it, then Fan would have suspected that he was just comforting her. But Lin Yi's words increased her confidence. Lin Yi, can you really cure my leg? Fan was surprised and happy. Even Kang Xiaobo looked at Lin Yi with anticipation. Yes, but don't worry. Lin Yi smiled. That's not a problem. Lin Yi's house had a couple of nerve-stimulating drugs, concocted by old Lin in order to stimulate his body's potential. Lin Yi didn't need those drugs anymore after learning the art of dragon mastery, so he put them aside. Since Lin Yi couldn't use it himself, he didn't put much effort into researching the medicine that stimulated the body's potential. Even if he didn't go back to his house to get the medicine, he could just look it up or call Old Man Lin and ask for the formula. Yes, yes! Fan nodded excitedly. She wanted to walk like a normal person even in her dreams, and now that Lin Yi had given her hope, she was in high spirits. Kang Xiaobo was very happy about Fan's change. He told her about the interesting things in school along the way, including how Lin Yi slapped Zhou Ruoming and kicked Zhong Pingliang. Yun is so lucky to find your boss. He's a good person and treats her well. Fan was happy that she found Lin Yi. After all, Lin Yi was many times stronger than Kang Mingning. Isn't Xiaobo nice to you too? Lin Yi joked. Yeah, I'm boss's follower. Naturally, I've inherited boss's good traditions, Kang Xiaobo said confidently. Hee hee. Xiaofan was amused. Inherited? He didn't give birth to you. Lin Yi picked up Tang Yun downstairs of the First People's Hospital. Tang Yun couldn't believe her eyes when she saw Xiaofan in the car. Fan. You're so pretty. Tang Yun rubbed her eyes. She was used to Fan's sickly look after so many years. She didn't think that Fan would still look so pretty after dressing up. Don't joke with me, Yun. How am I as beautiful as you? Although Xiaofan said that, she was still very happy in her heart. She couldn't compare to Tang Yun, who was already very beautiful without makeup, but compared to others, Xiao Fen was still very superior. Women dress up for the man they like, that's true. Are you dressing up for Kang Xiaobo? Tang Yun joked. How dare you talk about me? Yinyin, why aren't you wearing your school uniform today? Your dress is so pretty, I've never seen you wear it before. Xiao Fen pulled the topic back to Tang Yun. Tang Yun blushed. The dress she was wearing was bought by Lin Yi in the night market. She threw it in the closet because she was angry at Lin Yi. Now that her relationship with Lin Yi had improved, Tang Yun naturally found it and put it on. I gave it to her. Lin Yi smiled. Oh. Kang Xiaobo and Xiao Fen nodded. How? She gave you 50 kwai. Tang Yun glared at Lin Yi. Since you said that you gave it to her, when are you going to return it to me? Haha. Lin Yi knew that Tang Yun was just joking. She wouldn't really ask for money. Right, boss, where's the present you prepared? Kang Xiaobo suddenly remembered something important. Here. Lin Yi took out an antique box from his pocket and passed it to Kang Xiaobo. Oh? What's this? It looks pretty high-end. Kang Xiaobo took the box and opened it. Eh? Boss, what's this black pill? Pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Lin Yi said a name he just came up with. Pill of life extension and toxin cleansing? Kang Xiaobo repeated the name in shock. How come I've never heard of this before? A miracle doctor gave it to me. There's not a lot of it. Lin Yi said. After taking this pill, it can quickly expel the impurities and toxins in your body. It can extend your lifespan by 5 to 10 years. Damn! Such a good thing? It can't be, boss. Why would you give it to him? Kang Xiaobo's words made Tang Yun and Xiao Fen speechless. Isn't he your second grandpa? Lin Yi was also speechless. That's true. But he hasn't been good to my family for the past few years. I might as well give it to Xiao Fen. Kang Xiaobo wanted to say that he ate it, but he remembered Xiao Fen and said it. Xiao Fen was touched, but she still said, We're young. We don't need to eat this, right? Xiao Fen is right. Lin Yi nodded. You're young. Even if you expel the toxins, you won't be able to expel much. It's especially effective for the elderly. So that's the case. Kang Xiaobo came to a realization. But it's a waste to give it to him. I might as well keep it for myself. I still have more when you need it. I'll keep it for you. Lin Yi smiled. You should give it to your second grandpa. Okay. Kang Xiaobo looked at the pill with a pained expression. Boss, you're not lying to me, right? Is this thing really that magical? It's not magical. It's based on science. The more toxins there are in the body, the more harmful it is to the body. Especially for the elderly. If you don't pay attention when you're young, the toxins will accumulate in your body. Lin Yi explained. This thing is used to expel toxins from the body. It doesn't have any other functions. I see. Kang Xiaobo nodded. Okay, I'll give it to him since he's my second grandpa. Lin Yi drove to the provincial capital, Donghai City. Donghai City was the provincial capital. It wasn't far from Songtan City, but it wasn't too close either. It was about a 3-hour drive. Lin Yi's shabby van couldn't drive very fast. If other cars drove for more than 3 hours, Lin Yi had to drive for more than 4 hours. It couldn't be helped. The van's speed couldn't be picked up, and it would easily fall apart. When the four of them arrived at the provincial capital, Donghai City, it was already 6:00 at night. Where are we going? Lin Yi had no sense of direction after getting off the highway. He knew nothing about the provincial capital, Donghai City. Chapter 364. Chapter 364. Master's old friend Kang Xiaobo's parents left in the morning. Kang Xiaobo said that he would come with his classmate's car, so his parents didn't wait for him. The call went through, and it was Kang Xiaobo's father who picked up. Xiaobo, you've arrived? Yeah, we just got off the highway. We're at the entrance of Donghai City, Kang Xiaobo said. Dad, where are you staying? I'll go look for you. I'm staying at Moon on the Sea Hotel, sigh. Confus sighed and didn't say anything for a long time. Dad, what's wrong? Kang Xiaobo paused. He felt like his father had something he couldn't say. Dad, where are you? I'm staying at the hotel your second grandpa arranged for me, Confus said. But… Xiaobo, bring your classmates to another hotel, one that's more luxurious. Don't neglect them, ah? Kang Xiaobo froze. Dad, why are we staying outside? Didn't second grandpa book the whole hotel already? Sai, your second grandpa's family only reserved one room for us three, Confus said. They can't let you come back to stay by yourself, can they? Didn't you tell them that I'm bringing classmates? Kang Xiaobo panicked. I did, but your second uncle said that he was too busy and forgot. Confus sighed. Whether he really forgot or not, I don't want to pursue it. But your second uncle's words are too infuriating. He said that your classmates can just find a hotel that's 30 to 20 yuan and he'll pay for it. Look, what are you talking about? Moon on the Sea, isn't that the hotel we went to last time? Didn't he book the whole resort? Why aren't there any empty rooms? Kang Xiaobo felt like he had lost face. Lin Yi, Tang Yun, and Xiaofan heard his father's conversation clearly. It made him angry. He said there will be VIPs. Forget it, Xiaobo, Dad will pay for you. Take your classmate to a more luxurious hotel. Kang Xiaobo's father was unwilling to argue on this topic. Don't neglect your classmate. Okay. Kang Xiaobo hung up the phone. He was so angry that he wanted to punch the car shed, but he finally retracted his hand. What AF * King Bully? Why? Last time on his second grandpa's birthday, Kang Mingming found a bunch of scoundrel friends, and they were all arranged to stay in the hotel. Many of them even had single rooms. His friends were fine, but his classmates had to stay in the hotel. What kind of logic was that? Forget it, Xiaobo. Lin Yi didn't think much of it. Then let's find a place ourselves. Boss, you don't know. Moon on the Sea is actually a resort. It's huge. How can there be no rooms? Kang Xiaobo said hatefully. I think they are looking down on us. Moon on the Sea? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Is that the name? Why? Boss, you know this hotel too? Kang Mingming looked at Lin Yi's stunned expression and asked curiously. Wait, let me make a call. Lin Yi hesitated for a moment before opening the door and getting out of the car. Although Lin Yi didn't want to use his previous connections, this was his last mission. After the mission, he wanted to live an ordinary life. Even if he had to be the Missy's follower for the rest of his life, he would accept it. This was because this kind of life without bullets and blood on the edge was too nostalgic. However, this time, because of Kang Xiaobo, the only brother he knew after integrating into his ordinary life, Lin Yi decided to make an exception for him. Lin Yi walked to a position a little further away from the van and dialed a number. After the phone call went through, it was quickly picked up on the other side. There was a pleasant female voice. Eagle? How did you guess it was me? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. The location of the call is Donghai City. The voice was a little reproachful. At present, except for you who has a special mission there is no one there. Oh? As expected of the princess of the hacker world. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. You can immediately know my location. Even if I don't know your location, I can still deduce that your phone number belongs to Songzhan. Princess snorted lightly. Locating your location is just a confirmation. Fine, I admit I'm not good at computers. Lin Yi surrendered. I have something to ask you. Is the Moon on the Sea Hotel in Donghai operated by our people? I think I saw it on a PDA before. Where's your PDA? Princess didn't answer, but asked in return. My old man took it to play games. Lin Yi sweated. And he said this mission is not dangerous, so he doesn't need that thing. Play games? Princess was obviously speechless, but she didn't have the right to criticize old Lin. She could only pretend not to hear. It's operated by our people. Okay, give me the contact number of the person in charge, Lin Yi said. His contact number is. The princess gave him the contact number. Okay, then I'll hang up first. Linny noted down the contact number. Don't you have anything else to say to me? Princess asked in return. What else? Linny was stunned. Goodbye. Before Linny could say anything else, the call was already hung up. Looking at the phone being hung up, Linny smiled helplessly. This girl, what's wrong with her again? What Linny didn't expect was that the owner of the Moon on the Sea Hotel in Donghai was not only one of his people, but also an old friend of his master. Although they hadn't met before, he had heard his master mention this person more than once. Linny followed the contact number provided by Princess and dialed his number. Hello, who are you looking for? After the call was connected, a deep male voice came from the other side. Uncle Tian? Linny asked tentatively. You are? The man who was addressed as Uncle Tian was not sure who this person was. I am Linny. Linny said his name. On the other side of the phone, Uncle Tian was stunned. He fell silent, as if digesting the name. After a while, he asked tentatively. Boss' last disciple? That's me, Linny said. Please tell me your code name and password in the organization. Uncle Tian was obviously a cautious person. Eagle password is. Linny said a code that was a combination of numbers and English. Chapter 365. Know all kinds of people. Why would I need anything? Lin Yi's identity was special, but Uncle Tian was his elder, an old friend of his Shifu. Linny wouldn't put on airs. Uncle Tian, I need your help with something. Just say it. Uncle Tian was a little angry. Your boss's disciple. Your words are the same as boss's. It's like this. I'm going to his second grandpa's birthday party with my classmate, but we don't have any rooms left. Do you have a place to stay? Linny asked. That's it. Uncle Tian froze. It was too simple. Are you going to Kong Light-Size's birthday party? His surname is Kong, Dr. Kong, but I'm not sure if it's this Kong like I. Linny felt a chill when he heard Dr. Kang's name. As expected of a moneymaker. That's him then. Uncle Tian smiled. The entire resort has been booked by the Kong family, but I have a private villa that's not open to the public. You can just come over. All right, I'll head over now. I'll call you when I get there. Linny reminded him. I'm a student now. I understand. Uncle Tian smiled. He wouldn't ask too much about Lin Yi's identity and what he was going to do. Linny hung up and returned to the car. He said to Kong Xiaobo, It's done. Let's go. Where? Kong Xiaobo was surprised. To the Moon on the Sea resort, Linny said as he started the car. There's no room in the resort. Boss, you found someone? Kong Xiaobo was excited. We can stay at the Moon on the Sea resort too? Yeah. Linny nodded. The owner of the hotel is an elder of mine. Damn, boss, you're amazing. Kong Xiaobo was full of admiration. His eyes were blazing with passion. He could finally hold his head high and let off some steam. Didn't her second uncle not allow her to stay here? And he stayed there. It doesn't matter if he doesn't have a room. I don't need to prepare a room for him. I have a room to stay in. Seeing how excited Kong Xiaobo was, Tang Yun looked at Lin Yi curiously. This guy seemed to be able to solve any trouble easily. Did he know the owner of Donghai Ocean Moon Hotel? He knew quite a few people. Oh. Well, don't be angry. Not only do we have a room to live in, but we also live in a villa. Lin Yi smiled and comforted Kong Xiaobo. Villa? It can't be? Kong Xiaobo's eyes widened. I heard that Bright Moon over the sea has a total of 30 independent villas. Only 20 of them are open to the public, and 10 of them are for private use. That's right, boss, you know their boss. Naturally, you have a villa for private use. Although Lin Yi didn't know where Bright Moon over the sea hotel was, he removed the GPS from Yushu's Beetle and installed it in his car before he left. It was a very famous hotel. Lin Yi searched for it on the GPS, and found a clear route to the hotel. Kang Xiaobo's second uncle, Kang Mingming's father, was standing at the entrance of Bright Moon Over the Sea Resort with Kang Mingming, welcoming the guests. As for Kang Xiaobo's uncle, he was the CEO of Dr. Kang's medical group. His position was much more important than Kang Xiaobo's second uncle. He was currently in the hotel with a few important guests. "Boss, that's my second uncle. The one beside him is Kang Mingming." Kang Xiaobo pointed at the person not far away and introduced him to Lin Yi. "Xiaobo." Xiaofan faintly saw the figure of that person and closed her eyes in fear. This was the person that she had yearned for day and night, but at this moment, Xiaofan couldn't tell what kind of feelings she had for this person. Longing? Hate? Or fear? Kang Xiaobo grabbed Fan's hand tightly and comforted her. "It's okay. It's okay, boss and I are here, no one will bully you, I'm still a little scared." Fan was a little nervous as she held on to Kang Xiaobo's hand tightly, not daring to let go. "It's okay. If you're not ready, just lie down and close your eyes, it'll be fine," Kang Xiaobo comforted. "Okay." Fan nodded and followed Kang Xiaobo's instructions, closing her eyes and lying down. Beep beep. Lin Yi pressed the horn twice in front of the railing of the resort's driveway. Kang Mingming took a glance at Lin Yi's car and walked over impatiently. He complained to the security guard beside him. "Can't your hotel's delivery car go through the back door? How many times have I told you? If you go through the front door, wouldn't it affect the guest's mood?" "Yes, second young Master Kang." The security guard apologized carefully, but when he looked at the license plate of Lin Yi's van, he was a little puzzled. "I don't know this car. Is he a delivery car for the hotel?" "Delivery car, go through the back door." Kang Mingming ran over impatiently and shouted at Lin Yi while waving his hand. "I'm not a delivery car, I'm here to stay." Lin Yi was a little speechless. This was the second time he was mistaken as a delivery car. "Stay? This place has been booked by my family. There are no more rooms. You should go somewhere else." After Kang Mingming finished, he ignored Lin Yi and walked back. Why would a stranger waste his breath on him? Kang Mingming didn't have the time for that. Kang Xiaobo frowned, but he opened the car door and got out. "Xiao Ming, it's me and my classmates. We're here to celebrate second grandpa's birthday." "Oh?" Kang Mingming saw Kang Xiaobo get out of the car, and he was obviously stunned. Didn't he ask his father to tell Kang Xiaobo not to come and stay outside? Kang Mingming didn't have a good impression of Kang Xiaobo. At his grandpa's birthday party, Kang Xiaobo didn't give him any face at all. He was cold to his big brother, which made Kang Ming feel very embarrassed. Which of his relatives did not fawn over him with the utmost respect? "Why are you, Kang Xiaobo, so arrogant? Although you're also a member of the Kang family, you're not from my bloodline. What's there to be arrogant about?" "Alright, since you're so arrogant, then just you wait." When Kang Mingming heard that Kang Xiaobo invited his classmates to his grandpa's birthday party, he subconsciously thought that Kang Xiaobo wanted to show off his family's power to his classmates. His second grandpa was the famous Dr. Kang. However, since Kang Ming already had a grudge against Kang Xiaobo, how could he let him have his way? "Since you want to show off, I'll make you lose face." Therefore, he purposely asked his father to tell Kang Xiaobo's father that there was no more room in the resort. He asked Kang Xiaobo to find a hotel to stay with his classmates, and then reimburse him. Chapter 366. Tit for tat. Kang Mingming looked at his father, who was puzzled as well. Kang Xiaobo's father had informed Kang Xiaobo's father, so why didn't he inform Kang Xiaobo? "Xiaobo, didn't your dad tell you? The resort is full, and we didn't arrange a room for you and your classmates." Kang Mingming feigned innocence. "How about this? Why don't you and your classmates stay at the hotel next door? There's a small hotel there, it's only 30 to 40 kuai a night. I'll reimburse you tomorrow." "Oh, Xiaoming, you don't have to worry about that. We've already booked a room here," Kang Xiaobo said faintly. "We don't need you to arrange it." "Hmm? What?" Kong Mingming blinked. You booked a room here? Impossible! I've booked all the rooms that are open to the public. Who are you trying to fool? Why would I lie to you? Kong Xiaobo shrugged, feeling good watching Kong Mingming go crazy. Xiaobo, I know you don't want to lose face in front of your classmates, and I understand how you feel. Kong Mingming's words were sincere, but he purposely raised his voice so that Lin Yi and the others could hear him. But you have to know that most of the guests for my grandpa's birthday are dignitaries. They can't even fit in the rooms, so why would there be rooms for your classmates? Plus, you're not grandpa's blood-related grandson, so there's no way they'll take care of you when arranging rooms. That's none of your concern. Kong Xiaobo wasn't angry at all. You've booked the rooms that are open to the public, but don't you have rooms that aren't open to the public as well? We've booked rooms that aren't open to the public. After that, Kong Xiaobo stopped talking to Kong Mingming. He opened the railing in front of the car and got in. You! Zhao Ming was pissed off. Perhaps it was because Xiaobo knew the staff here, or maybe he'd arranged a staff restroom for them. Still, he wasn't satisfied with letting him in just like that. Forget it, illuminate! Kong Mingming's father waved his hand. Although he also looked down on his nephew's family, as an elder, he couldn't do too much. What the hell is this? Do you think you're some big shot now? Kong Mingming watched as Lin Yi's old car drove into the resort. He couldn't help but curse. Isn't it embarrassing to drive a lousy car? All right, illuminate, your grandfather still cares about his face. Don't be too rude in front of outsiders. Anyway, he's a relative who doesn't interact with you all year round. If he wants to show off, then let him. He won't get any practical benefits anyway. Kong Mingming's father, Kong Tsuipu, shook his head and smiled as he welcomed an Audi that was about to drive into the resort. CO Wan, you're here too. After Lin Yi entered the resort, he contacted Uncle Tian. Because of Lin Yi's repeated refusal and instructions, Uncle Tian didn't come out to welcome him personally. Instead, he sent a confidant to welcome Lin Yi. However, even the confidant didn't know Lin Yi's true identity. Lin Yi wanted to keep a low profile. If he was so close to the resort's boss in a high-profile manner, it was inevitable that he would be noticed by the Kong family. This time, Lin Yi accompanied Kong Xiaobo as a bystander. His main goal was to let Xiaofan clearly see the ugly faces of Kong Mingming and the others and completely erase him from her memory. If Lin Yi exposed the fact that he was close to Uncle Tian, then Kong Mingming might change his attitude and purposely get close to him to flatter him. That way, Xiaofan wouldn't be able to see his true colors. Young Master Lin, hello? CO Tian asked me to come over. A man in his 30s walked quickly to Lin Yi's car. He didn't look down on Lin Yi's old car at all. His eyes maintained a respectful expression without a trace of suspicion. I'm Li Xuan. Young Master Lin can just call me Xiaoli. Uncle Tian must have told him the car number, so he immediately confirmed Lin Yi's identity. Mr. Li can just bring us to the villa, Lin Yi said politely. Young Master Lin, please follow me. Li Xuan nodded. Do you want me to get in the car, or do you want to take my car? Li Xuan said and pointed to a business car parked not far away. Mr. Li, please get in the car. I can drive myself, Lin Yi said. Li Xuan didn't say much. He got in the car and pointed the way to Lin Yi. It didn't take long for him to arrive in front of a villa by the seaside. This villa had the best view out of all the villas in the area. However, there was a "for personal use" sign at the door of the villa. It was obviously not open to the public. Young Master Lin, the villa is ready. You can move in now, Li Xuan said and gave Lin Yi a name card. This is my contact number. If you need anything, young Master Lin can contact me directly. Okay, thank you. Lin Yi took the name card and kept it. Li Xuan didn't speak much. He nodded and left. This kind of person was important because of his style of doing things. He didn't talk much and didn't ask much. Young Master Lin? Boss, are you really a young master from a rich family? Didn't you say you only have a rich relative? Kong Xiaobo heard Li Xuan call Lin Yi young Master Lin. He looked at Lin Yi excitedly. Boss, be honest. Are you the rumored rich second generation? Do I look like it? Linny smiled bitterly. Your brother is, hee. Eh? Xiaofen? Kang Xiaobo wanted to tease him, but when he looked down, he saw that Xiaofen's face was covered in tears. He was so scared that his heart was about to explode. Xiaofen, don't cry. What's wrong? Lin Yi and Tang Yun heard Kang Xiaobo's voice. They turned around and saw Xiaofen's tear-stained face. However, Lin Yi and Tang Yun didn't know what to say. This was expected. Xiaofen saw Kang Mingming again. Although they didn't meet face to face, just looking at him from afar was enough to shake Xiaofen's fragile heart. At this time, only Kang Xiaobo could comfort her. Lin Yi and Tang Yun didn't know what to say. Xiaobo, carry Xiaofen into the room and comfort her? Lin Yi suggested. Okay. Kang Xiaobo nodded and ran into the villa with Xiaofen in his arms. Let's go in later. Lin Yi sighed. He stopped the car in front of the villa and turned off the engine. Chapter 367. Do you dare? I hope so. Lin Yi nodded. Every family has their own problems. Kang Xiaobo's family is very complicated, and they don't have much of a family relationship. Yeah, a rich family like that can't even compare to us poor families, Tang Yun said. They don't have that much wealth, and they don't have that many problems. Right, how's your brother's situation? Lin Yi suddenly remembered about Tang Yun's cousin. I gave him the money, and he should have returned it already. He hasn't called in the past few days, and I've been busy with Dad's surgery with Mom, Tang Yun said. But don't worry, I'll definitely return the money to you. Ha, I don't mean for you to return the money. Don't think too much about it, and tell your brother not to feel too much pressure, Lin Yi said. Yeah. Tang Yun nodded and raised her head. You really don't need me to return it? No need, Lin Yi said. Why are you so nice to me? Tang Yun was a little agitated as she looked at Lin Yi without blinking. Nice? It's not that nice, is it? Lin Yi scratched his head. He couldn't take Tang Yun's direct gaze. Pfft. Tang Yun laughed out loud. It was a serious topic, but Lin Yi's words turned it into a joke. Then do you dare to be nicer to me? Tang Yun wanted to ask Lin Yi if he wanted to be with her for the rest of his life, but Lin Yi's answer made it hard for her to continue asking. It was good that she didn't ask, though. It would save both of them from the awkwardness. Who knew what would happen in the future? For the first time, Tang Yun joked with Lin Yi. Of course. Lin Yi nodded. Ha. Tang Yun laughed happily. Remember what you said, how will you stay at night? Lin Yi suddenly thought of the problem of staying at night. Kang Xiaobo should be accompanying Xiaofen, then he and Tang Yun. Lin Yi couldn't help but get excited. Could he share a room with Tang Yun? Of course it's me and Xiaofen living together. How could Tang Yun not know what Lin Yi was thinking? She snorted and said, Don't think about those messy things. Before marriage, it's impossible, ugh. Lin Yi sweated. Did Tang Yun see through his thoughts just like that? However, Tang Yun thought that marriage was a bit too much. At least there were many couples living together before marriage. She was afraid that Lin Yi would be disappointed, so she added, At least before you bring me to see your parents, it's impossible. I'm actually an orphan. Lin Yi sighed self-deprecatingly. Ah? Tang Yun widened her eyes and looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. You're an orphan? Yeah. Lin Yi nodded. I don't even know who my real parents are. I'm sorry. Tang Yun didn't think that Lin Yi was an orphan. Then her words were inappropriate. I didn't know you were an orphan. I didn't say anything just now. It's fine. I'm used to it. Lin Yi shook his head indifferently. But my family has an old man who raised me up and a strict master. Speaking of which, they are my elders. I'll bring you to see them when the time comes. And Tang Yun saw that Lin Yi wasn't disappointed and secretly sighed in relief. At the same time, she was happy that Lin Yi planned to bring her to see his old man and master. Although she didn't know who these two people were, she knew that they weren't ordinary people. Otherwise, if Lin Yi was willing to bring her there, it meant that he approved of her. Tang Yun thought that Lin Yi was a rich young master, but she didn't think that he was an orphan. Although Tang Yun knew more about Lin Yi and knew that he didn't have the temperament of a rich young master, she just thought that it was because he had a good upbringing. She didn't know that his background was like this. However, Tang Yun put down the idea that Lin Yi's family was out of reach. She was afraid that Lin Yi's family was rich and wouldn't admit her relationship with Lin Yi. Now, it seemed that this worry was unnecessary. It made Tang Yun feel much better. "Boss, come in. Xiao Fun is asleep." Tang Yun was thinking about Lin Yi's background when Kang Xiaobo ran out and shouted at the car. Tang Yun frowned slightly. She was getting along well with Lin Yi, but it was ruined by Kang Xiaobo. She got out of the car and glared at Kang Xiaobo. "Aren't you afraid of waking Xiao Fun up by shouting so loudly?" "Ah? Kang Xiaobo didn't dare to talk back after being scolded by Tang Yun. He could only explain weakly. "This villa is soundproof." "Humph!" Tang Yun snorted and ignored Kang Xiaobo. She walked in front of him and stepped on his foot. Then, she walked into the villa. Kang Xiaobo didn't know what happened to Tang Yun. He looked at Lin Yi helplessly. "Boss, what happened to sis-in-law? Why is she so angry?" "How would I know? She was about to kiss me and was interrupted by you." Lin Yi shrugged. "No way? Even this was interrupted by me? It seems like I'm a sinner." Kang Xiaobo looked like he deserved it. "It's over. Sister-in-law's impression of me has worsened." Lin Yi was too lazy to care about him. He locked the car and entered the villa with Kang Xiaobo. Tang Yun was sitting on the sofa in the living room. Xiao Fun was lying beside her. She hadn't woken up yet. "What are we eating tonight?" Lin Yi glanced at Tang Yun and asked softly. "Anything. Instant noodles will do. Why don't we wait for Xiao Fun to wake up?" Tang Yun looked at the time on her phone. Although it was time for dinner, it wasn't appropriate for her to eat since Xiao Fun was asleep. Xiao Fun didn't wake up until 8 o'clock at night. The fear in her heart had dissipated, and her spirit had recovered a lot. Hearing that everyone was waiting for her without eating, Xiao Fun was very touched. She said embarrassedly, "I'm sorry I made everyone worry, Xiao Fun. We are actually here to accompany you." "You don't have to worry about us." Tang Yun waved her hand. "We are the happiest that you can walk out of the shadow." "Yeah, Xiao Fun, are you hungry? Boss has been waiting for you." Kang Xiaobo also asked. I'm fine with eating anything." Xiao Fun shook her head. "Let's eat whatever there is. It's already so late, there shouldn't be anything to eat, right?" Chapter 368. The troublemaker is here. As for tomorrow's birthday banquet, it was an important occasion. Kang Mingming wouldn't be so rude as to make fun of Xiaofan. Although he and Kang Xiaobo were from different branches, they were still part of the Kang family in front of outsiders. If Kang Mingming were to attack Kang Xiaobo, then he would only be a laughing stock. So tomorrow was the best time to bring Xiaofan out and let her and Kang Mingming end things. After Kang Xiaobo gave the gift, they would leave quickly. "There's instant noodles here. Let's eat first." Lin Yi opened the glass cabinet and took out the instant food. There were instant noodles, instant rice, ham sausages, and other instant food. These people weren't picky people. It didn't matter what they ate as long as there was food to fill their stomachs. After eating the instant noodles, everyone went to rest. Tang Yun supported Xiaofan to a room upstairs, not giving Lin Yi and Kang Xiaobo any chance. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't really care. He and Tang Yun weren't really in a relationship, and they didn't express anything. They were just getting closer to each other. They hadn't even kissed yet, so how could they live together? Kang Xiaobo, on the other hand, was slightly disappointed. "How sad! I wanted to get closer to Xiaofan, but I don't have the chance anymore. There will be chances in the future." Lin Yi patted Kang Xiaobo's shoulder. "Xiaofan's not in a good mood today. Even if you want to do something else, she probably won't be in the mood." Why don't you wait for Kong Mingming's matter to be resolved? Once it's over, Xiaofan will be able to open up her heart. Boss, you're right. I was too anxious. Kong Xiaobo sweated. I'll listen to you. Haha. Lin Yi laughed. Let's go, we're going to rest. With that, Lin Yi found a room downstairs and was about to enter when Kong Xiaobo followed. Boss, wait for me. Why are you following me? Lin Yi turned around and asked curiously. Heh, boss, I want to sleep with you. Xiaobo said with a chuckle. Fuck. Lin Yi felt a chill. Don't you like Xiaofan? Boss, you misunderstood. I'm very normal. I just want to chat with you. Kong Xiaobo sweated. I'm a little worried about my parents' attitude towards Xiaofan. Lin Yi realized that the guy wasn't worried about his sexual orientation, he was worried about his parents' attitude. Let's chat then, it's nothing. Lin Yi sighed. That's up to you. Fin's a good girl, but she got tricked. I'm sure your parents will understand if you tell them the truth. Yeah, I think so too, but I don't have enough confidence. I've been thinking that I'll talk to them about this when I can make a name for myself with Xiaofan and make them look at me differently. But time waits for no man. Kong Xiaobo sighed. My parents will know about my relationship with Xiaofan tomorrow. I'm afraid they'll object. Haha, it's not impossible for you to make a career. Don't worry, I'll give you a chance soon. Lin Yi was thinking about his spokesperson. It would be a good idea to push Kong Xiaobo out, especially with the fact that Kong Xiaobo was Dr. Kang's relative. Miracle Dr. Guan would be able to make a name for himself in the market. Even patients who didn't believe in Miracle Dr. Guan's medicine would think that Kong Xiaobo also had the golden creation formula after knowing about the relationship between Kong Xiaobo and Dr. Kong. Really? Kong Xiaobo's eyes lit up when he heard Lin Yi's words. He shouted excitedly. Boss, you're too good to me. Hey, go to sleep. We need to be energetic to deal with Kong Mingming tomorrow. Lin Yi reminded him. Yes, I'll go to sleep now. Kong Xiaobo nodded and left, finding a room to sleep in. Lin Yi, Kong Xiaobo, Tang Yun, and Xiaofan left the villa at 9 a.m. the next day. They still had instant noodles for breakfast. Although Li Xuan wanted to send some food to Lin Yi, the boss didn't tell him and Lin Yi didn't call, so Li Xuan didn't want to disturb Lin Yi. The tit-for-tat at the entrance of the resort yesterday made Dao Ming feel like he had lost a lot of face. He was the direct descendant of Miracle Dr. Kong, and yet he couldn't deal with a side relative. This made him very angry. At night, he found a familiar waiter and asked him to find out which room Kong Xiaobo and the others were staying in. He wanted to bring his men to humiliate them, but he couldn't find out anything. He could only let them go. It was impossible for them not to show up today. It was his grandfather's birthday banquet. Kong Xiaobo and the others would definitely come. Kong Mingming brought his men to wait at the entrance of the banquet hall. When Kong Xiaobo and the others came, he would humiliate them. Do you remember what second young master Kong said? One of Kong Mingming's men, Zhu Xiaozhang, gave a few bills to the security guards at the entrance and asked them arrogantly. I remember. Don't worry, Zhu bro. A security captain took the bills and said respectfully, Don't call me Zhu bro. Zhu Xiaozhang glared at him. Zhu bro and pig bro had the same pronunciation, which made him a little unhappy. Call me Xiaozhang bro, understand? Xiaozhang bro and arrogant bro had the same pronunciation, so Zhu Xiaozhang preferred people to call him arrogant bro. He was Kong Mingming's number one lackey. With Kong Mingming's name, he was indeed very arrogant. No one dared to mess with him. Yes, arrogant bro. The security captain quickly said. They're here. Another of Kong Mingming's men, Wang Shubing, had sharp eyes. He saw Lin Yi's broken van driving towards them. He had already memorized the license plate number. Last night, he went back and forth to look for the van, but he couldn't find it. The security captain and the guards who were in charge of guarding the door nodded. The two understood and rushed towards the van, ready to make trouble. Lin Yi was in the van. He saw Kong Mingming and his men talking to each other. They must be planning something. He curled his lips. Xiaobo, Kong Mingming is standing at the door. He will definitely cause trouble later. Be careful. Chapter 369. Why did she come? Chapter 369. Why did she come? And Xiao Fan already knew that Kong Mingming didn't like her at all and was just playing with her. Kong Mingming would never change his mind. Although Kong Mingming's family moved from Songhan to Dahai, the two cities weren't far apart. He would have come back to see Xiao Fan a long time ago if he wanted to. Why would he ignore her? The reason why Xiao Fan was so determined to face Kong Xiaoming again was because she wanted to let her subconscious know that Kong Xiaoming was a bad guy. He wasn't her lover at all. Lin Yi parked the car and got out, followed by Kong Xiaobo, Tang Yun, and Xiao Fan. You guys, what are you here for? Security aide pointed at Lin Yi and asked. We're here for the birthday banquet. Kong Xiaobo suppressed his anger and looked at the three security guards. He knew that they were sent by Kong Mingming after Lin Yi's reminder. Xiao Fan grabbed onto Kong Xiaobo's hand tightly, not daring to let go. She didn't even dare to look at Kong Mingming. Birthday banquet? Where's the invitation? Take it out. Security B extended his hand and asked. I'm here for my second grandpa's birthday banquet. Why would I need an invitation? Kong Xiaobo frowned. Your second grandpa? Who's your second grandpa? I think you're all liars, aren't you? The security captain spoke up with a slanted glance. My second grandpa is Dr. Kong. Kong Xiaobo was getting impatient. Don't be instigated by others. Instigate? What are you talking about? The security captain was angered. Look at you guys dressed like this, wearing rags that only cost tens of kwai. Who would believe that Dr. Kong is your second grandpa? And you're here for the birthday banquet? I think you're all liars, right? Are you here to scam food and drink? Who are you calling a liar? Kong Xiaobo was anxious. Lin Yi tugged at Kong Xiaobo, motioning him to calm down. He glanced at the security captain and said lightly, What's your name? What the F***ck do you care about my name? I'm telling you, you liars should leave as soon as possible, or I'll call the police. The security captain sneered and did not answer Lin Yi's words. Looks like I have to give Brother Li Xun a call. Why are the security guards under him so high class? Kick the guests out? Lin Yi shook his head in disdain and reached into his pocket. Where did I put the business card? Oh, here it is. Seeing that Lin Yi mentioned Li Xun's name, and really took out Li Xun's name card to make a call, the security captain was immediately dumbfounded. Of course, he knew what kind of person Li Xun was. He was the confidant of the big boss, President Tian. In this resort, when President Tian was not around, he was President Tian's spokesperson. Not to mention that he was just a small security captain. Even the security captain or the security manager was nothing in front of Li Xun. Previously, when he helped Kong Mingming to cause trouble for Lin Yi, the security captain was only doing it for the sake of money. But on Lin Yi's side, it was not as simple as money. If he offended Kong Mingming, at most, he would lose his money. If he offended Lin Yi, he would lose his job. Big brother. Don't call. I have eyes but failed to recognize you. Please don't lower yourself to my level. The security captain was about to cry. It turned out that the person who drove the broken van was the real god. He knew Li Xun. Even if their relationship was not that good, and they were just friends, Li Xun would definitely not offend Lin Yi for a small security captain like him. In Li Xun's eyes, he was just an insignificant person. If he was fired, there would be too many people who would want to replace him. On the other side, on Kong Mingming's side, they did not notice the conversation between Lin Yi and the security captain. The person they were paying attention to was Xiao Fan, who was beside Kong Xiaobo. Second young Master Kong, look at the woman beside your idiot brother. Why does she look like the woman you used to play with? Zhu Xiaohong pointed at Xiao Fan and said in surprise. Eh? You don't say, but it really looks like that little slut Lan Fan. Kong Mingming also widened his eyes in disbelief. Wasn't she killed by a car? Why is she still alive? I don't know. I gave the driver 500,000 yuan to kill her. Why didn't she die? Zhu Xiaozhang also thought it was strange. I spent 500,000 yuan for nothing. Xiaozhang, don't mention this anymore. Kang Mingming glared at him. How could he casually talk about hiring someone to kill someone? Fortunately, the three of them had done bad things together, so no one could criticize each other. Zhu Xiaozhang and Wang Shubing were involved in Xiao Fen's incident. It's just the three of us. Zhu Xiaozhang also felt that he had said something wrong. This matter really couldn't be casually talked about. If it was spread out, he would go to jail. But thinking about it, Xiao Fen's family didn't have much power and was extremely poor. Even if they heard this rumor, they couldn't do anything to them. Why is Xiao Fen here? Doesn't she know that I am Kang Xiaobo's brother? Kang Mingming was curious about Xiao Fen's purpose of coming here. Logically speaking, if Xiao Fen knew that he was Kang Xiaobo's cousin, she wouldn't come here to embarrass herself. He didn't think that Xiao Fen was here to cause trouble. Since she dared to come here to cause trouble, it was impossible for her to get any benefits. He wouldn't give it to her. She shouldn't be stupid. She wouldn't come here to embarrass herself, right? I was worried that I couldn't find a reason to humiliate them. Let's go and humiliate them. Zhu Xiaozhang smiled and suggested. Let's go and see what this bitch wants to do. Kang Mingming also wanted to see what Xiao Fen was here for. You guys move aside first. Zhu Xiaozhang waved his hand at the security team leader, indicating that there was nothing for them to do. Zhu Xiaozhang's attention was on Xiao Fen. He didn't see what happened between Lin Yi and the security team leader. He thought that they were humiliated badly. Yes. The security team leader was thinking about how to leave, but Zhu Xiaozhang came and gave him a chance to leave. If he didn't leave now, when would he leave? The security team leader quickly left with his subordinates. This kind of family's internal conflict wasn't something an outsider could participate in. Although it seemed that Kang Xiaobo's side was at a disadvantage, they actually knew Li Xuan. The security team leader regretted it. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have gotten involved for a few hundred yuan. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.